Greetings and welcome to Office Hours with Dr. G. Tonight I am excited to welcome back to Office Hours with Dr. G both Aseer, the Duke of Tears, and Celina Cordoba L, Empress of 10,000 Years, up close and personal. Aseer is a multimedia artist, natural historian, published author, writer, astrologer, and world traveler with a PhD in jurisprudence. Born Prince Charles E.L. Rogers Eel, Aseer began as an artist at the age of 4. Celina Cordoba L, Empress of 10,000 Years, is an accomplished mother, classically trained actress, writer, master yogist, alchemist, and business owner of Cordoba Organics, which is the only 100% Moorish American-owned organic beauty, skincare, and natural remedy line in the world, made from the ancient recipes of the Moors of old. These multi-talented artists, Aseer and Celina, have recorded 2 albums under the name Team Cordoba. And as I said, we have had 1 week with Brother Aseer, another week with Sister Celina,
That's me.
and tonight, we have them together, up close and personal, on Office Hours with Dr. G. Welcome. Now you have to rock with me. Come on now, you all. You gotta rock with the music. Come on, you gotta rock. Everybody has to rock if the music's not over.
Great to hear your music like that.
You know, we have a little bit of time. We have to rock with Dr. G.
Yeah,
That's me.
That is exactly.
One more.
Right.
How y'all doing?
We're good.
good.
I think this is the last bar.
Yeah, that's me.
There we go. Welcome to Office Hours with Dr. G. I have so been looking forward. This has been an awesome August Super Tuesday month that we have had with the both of you individually and now together, so that we can find out what is, the teamwork that makes the dream work. Because it has to be teamwork in order to do what you all do. Welcome to the show. Wow.
Thank you for having us
Indeed. Thanks for having
together
us
individually
and having a platform for people
and having a
communicate.
platform for our melody.
Well, thank you for being the awesome, duo that you are individually and collectively. I'm just really, really excited to have you here. And I know our viewers are, really were chomping at the bit to have you back. And initially, even before I got you on, I was getting little messages in the comments about Aseer, Duke of Tears. So it was to me, it did my heart proud that not only was I able to get you, but I was able to get you both, and individually and then together for this final show of the month of August. And the first show that we did, Brother Aseer, someone sent me a text today, and it had like about 20. I think it had a whole bunch of fire marks, like the brother was telling me that he was just watching the video and he couldn't wait for today, but he was watching the video from when you were here, and he had put like 20 fire signs. He said Aseer was on fire. He's dropping some fire. And you dropped some stuff. Matter of fact, I was afraid, not afraid, but I was wondering whether or not I was going to get flagged.
Girl,
You know,
I'm
I
sorry.
said she had.
no. But sometimes, you know, the truth, as we present the truth, a lot of these things, there are people who take offense to the truth that we bring. And there really should not be an issue when it is true. But like I did a show today's Tuesday. I did a show Sunday with my co-host, Brother Amanero Bay, who is in, where is he? He's over there. Oh, is that terrible? Where Breonna Taylor lived. Yeah, because they were colleagues. And we did a show called Dismantling History, right? On Sunday. And we were talking about the fact that I had gotten a revelation about a year or so ago about us, you know, how we try to break up the word history and call it his story versus our story. And, you know, my higher self said, stop doing that. Just look up the two words individually. You know what his is now. Look up Tory by itself. And when you find out that Tory means like a robber, a brigand, a British, it's thievery, then history belongs to them, not to us. We don't have history. We have, you know, we have existence. And I said history is just an interjection into Moorish reality.
That's right.
Right,
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, but you have Brother Aseer, and I'm not going to do a lot of talking because I know people want to hear you. You have been bringing it for a while. And what do you make of what's going on with regard to our current situation that we have been dealing with over the past, well, since the beginning of the year? A lot of things have happened. And then when I say the beginning of the year, I'm going to go back to, you know how they have an access point of 1492?
Yes, ma'am.
So this access point is it January 26th?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So since January 26th of 2020 to where we are now, what's on your heart with regard to what we should know and what we should be thinking about in terms of the next 69, 70 days, if at all?
Indeed. In my humble opinion, one thing that we should definitely do is not buy into, not buy into like what they want us to do. They want us to feel like the end is near, you know, the white man has won, for lack of a better word, you know, all your people have sold you out. Like they want us to always look at things from a totally destitute, bleak situation. You know what I mean? And our people have become, you gotta laugh to keep from crying. Our people have ingested that to the point that we have reinvested that into an art form where we literally have made billions of dollars off of our ignorance. You know what I'm saying? So now that we are starting to, I think, collectively realize that we're the frogs in the pot being slowly cooked, that we have to jump out. But the problem is we are our ancestors' return, but we are not them in the present context. So that means like the people in the 60s, 70s, 50s had like all the heart, right? Yet they had little information. You know what I'm saying? Our generations, or the generations that preceded that, started to get all the information and started to lack the heart, because whenever you have a society that becomes so more technologically advanced, right, you have a decline in the social paradigm of the same society. So the more technologically a society becomes, the more callous and it starts to be. And so because this reality has been shaped in a manner to get people to believe the worst of themselves and not the best, they they do the work of the so-called system for themselves. You know what I'm saying? So they feel that they don't have a real way out. So they don't want to actually change it. They want it to change, but they don't want to change everything about it. When you get knowledge of yourself, you realize that every aspect of yourself has to change. But what we mistakenly as neophytes, as novices that coming into consciousness, what we don't realize is that what we are calling change is the English version, but that's not really what we mean. What we're saying is that we have to shed the aspect of us that is not us. And in that, draw a boundary between yourself and somebody else's self, which represents somebody else's agenda. So because so-called Black people have no direct nationality, but have heavy equity, right? They have no direct way to tap into it. So there's always a middleman, somebody over them, somebody defining them, and then telling them that if they want to get it, they got to get it like this. You see what I'm saying? So that mentality has really came from a Western, so-called white supremacist ideology to offset us, but it also came from a worldwide progressive amnesia that we went into between the years of, let's say, 1492 and 1581. And then by 1581, those of us that was helping them, you see what I'm saying, maintain or create this thing that we're now in, created something to then in their society erase everything that happened prior to that. You see what I'm saying? Which then divested it to then mean that anybody that knew anything about anything before this was now a threat. So here we are again in 2020, and now the new Inquisition has become, the new Inquisitioners are now like the fact checkers on Facebook. You see what I'm saying? You wouldn't have something like that if you were dealing with a free and knowledge-based society. However, you're in a society now in which real knowledge is now deemed false, and then false knowledge is then deemed real. So if you don't have a base in your home, yourself, your family, your unit, whatever that is, then you will be susceptible to whatever movement they want to create. Like the Black Lives Matter situation is a perfect example. This is the first time in history where they openly have co-opted a movement with Black people's face on it, where when you read the tenets of it, it is the total opposite of what the Black community is. So it's almost like the stock market going up every time, like when they announced Kamala Harris was going to be thing, because they know that she put mad equity, mad mortgage-backed securities in the form of original people in prison, to make it happen. So Clinton, Pedo Joe created the platform, the crime bill. Clinton established it, and then Kamala freaked it to the point where there's nobody that arrested more Black people than her. So in this climate, they are producing her and again Joe as the only option, and then using terms like, well, you got to choose the lesser of two evils. Like, think about what they're telling you when they say that. They're telling you that you have to participate in the choice between the slave master and the slave owner, and for your benefit. But your ancestors, and then they say that your ancestors died for that. But how did your ancestors die for you to have the right to vote for other slave owners? That don't make sense. But this is the ideology that people with no nationality and no grounding in who they are or who they've been are able to be. So they could do anything. So they could create a product called African Pride and put an African face on it with some kente cloth, and then do things. Right. And it's really some Germans that were actually may have been part of what happened out there with all of the horrors of those people. And you wonder why people's hair be falling out and all this other type of stuff when we have no means of production in our community. You have all these Black billionaires, and not one has invested in some sort of industry outside of music that could actually establish something that you and I could walk into and be like, wow, this is a great museum that such and such made for us or whatever. Why is it all these institutions like the African American Museum and this and that are always sponsored by old Jewish philanthropist white people who were the ones that destroyed this stuff in the first place? So until we could deal with stuff like that, I don't think we should be involving ourselves in things that really have nothing to do with us, like this present war between the different Freemasonic factions in the government. Like it has nothing to do with us, really, but it affects us because they can't really pop anything off without us. So they don't want you, but for some reason, they need you to participate. So that should let you know that you are being held hostage by a bunch of belligerent trustees that don't want to give up your estate and your bill. You haven't reached the age of majority, and you haven't, regardless of how old you are, if you haven't delineated yourself between what is theirs or where their jurisdiction stops and yours begins. That's what the Christians was talking about when Jesus was talking about render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. So I think that's the main thing. We don't, there's no political base that's just for us. The minute you start talking about doing things just for Moorish Americans or just for so-called blacks or just for African Americans, you get a bunch of black people and a bunch of gay people come and talk to you about how you're excluding them. And then if you get past them, they bring the Jewish people in on you to stop that. When the same rabbi that called out Nick Cannon is on tape calling black people monkeys, but nobody is boycotting his synagogue or boycotting his show. But yet it's still, people in that arena will castrate themselves in order to stay in it, but then act like they're against it. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can't have it both ways. And that's what I think is killing us. You want to add on, babe?
It's just money. It's money.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
people think, messing with certain folks, Hollywood, it's money.
See?
If I do this, I'm gonna get on, I'm gonna be famous, and I'm gonna get money. And those that don't, think. I hope y'all notice that whenever I start talking, my son come out because he's not used to me really doing stuff. So whenever he hears me talking loud, he comes outside, and I think that's hilarious. He just popped the door. If you hit my money tree tonight, sweetheart, please don't. You can walk around right here, love. I made room for you. Okay. The thought really is just finance. It's money and prestige. People equate, higher class with prestige, and that's what's in Vanity Fair, and that's what's in Vogue, and that's what's in things that people worldwide are going to see, and that's what this society has been engendered to respect. People that have money. So if you're on, then I should see you in these arenas, and if you're not, then you're not really popping. So people really compromise. This entire thing is about compromising one's spirit and compromising one's integrity to get on and to keep whatever material wealth that they have subscribed to and that is coming to them going. You got it, Lord? Good job, son. Good job, son. So that's to say it's really based in finance. So it's difficult because I think that people really do think that, if they are part of something that equates to this, they will benefit in material, gain. And it's not to say that might not happen, but there's also other compromises that take place. So, it's just to go back to self and go back to the foundation and to be grateful that there's people that will listen outside of that and that there's a whole community obviously here that is aware that this is happening in the world and that there's, through compassion and through love, we can almost stop it. Through compassion, this one is funny to me. Through compassion and through love, we can heal. We can heal each other. We can rely on this in order to finance and to move our lives forward. Like I've never, I said I'm very grateful from last Tuesday till now. I have been busier than a bumblebee, and I've always prayed for that. So now that it's here, I'm very grateful. But it's to say that it's people like you that talk about things in real time. It's people that listen. I've really gained a lot of love and faith in the people because you guys were right, just little stuff that grounds people that haven't necessarily been supported by their families and by the majority to say, hey, there is a world out there that's responsive to things that people of faith and people of spirituality that might not be a part of, certain sororities and certain fraternal orders. That wasn't my experience in college. I made sure I didn't want to partake in certain things like that. So I wasn't necessarily welcomed by a lot of sisterhoods because there was a lot of AKs and a lot of different sororities at Syracuse. And I just found myself to kind of be like, oh, wow, the community that I ended up, bonding with was like two people that I found, met in the drama department, and just keeping a low profile and not feeling as though, I had to be a part of that Black clique that really I talked to my, white friend about. Like, it's so messed up that I'm sitting here in my Birkenstocks, chilling with you when I would love to go to these parties, but I'm not in the and the meow. So, we would laugh at stuff like that. And that's something to express, again, when you can have experiences outside of race and be raised to not necessarily be about color, but know what your color engenders, and know, it's not to say that everybody is going to be anti-brown. I was very blessed to, attract a girl from Colorado who was just, the nicest woman to me, and she was a white girl. But what we realized was hip hop really solidified our bond. We, all of our CDs were the same. And so our relationship, and I always am like, how is it that you know more Ice Cube lyric, all of the knowledge that she gained was from being kept from an urban society, and saying, wow, I really like this Snoop Dogg album. I really like this, LL Cool J and this, Brand Nubian. We bonded through music. So race really isn't something that I've never felt stifled by, or like, oh, I can't be friends and have relationships with people outside of my race. That has nothing to do with that. So I say that to say, if I was programmed to believe that my experiences of positivity should only come from people that look like myself, then I would have had a horrible time in Syracuse, because I was actually treated with more disdain, because I did kind of fall into that like little hippie, yoga lifestyle instead of the crunk up sex, drugs, cocaine, football. It was either one or the other, and basketball. So, again, to know yourself and know what you're not really going to do is a part of what we would hope to inspire people to not compromise. And that type of peer pressure, is alive and well. But again, to say, wow, my experience in college was with, two girls that, if I were to talk about their financial status, it's totally opposite. So we really, to be able to bond outside of finance, outside of given circumstances, and love each other unconditionally. Even when my mom passed, I expected certain love from Black women that I had known from Brooklyn that were at Syracuse, and I didn't receive that. It was almost total opposite. What can I do for you? Do you need a ticket? Can I help you out with packing? Like, just being present. And that really said something to me. Like, wow, I would, again, it's like fast forwarding that story to say, we would all like to be really close to some of our family members, but our family members holding honor or respecting the things that we hold dear to our hearts, whether it be our vegetarian lifestyle, little things. That's something that is difficult to let go of when we've been programmed, especially through Christianity, that if we don't have this nuclear family, then somehow we're broken, or that there's something wrong, or that, God forbid, we don't compromise the things that we hold dear. So it's just to say, to really ground oneself in the sanctuary of knowing that you will be received in love, and that you will find people that are like-minded that will support. I've never, thank God, have had to ask for certain help outside of what I did for myself. But in times that I did, I always paid someone or gave someone finance, just for me personally, to not feel as though they were doing me a favor like that, or I wasn't aware of their light bill and the phone for the week. So I was always in that space, but that can also create a little bit of maturity in oneself to say, if I don't want to go through pressuring my friends and family or asking for help, then I have to do certain things to make sure that I have for a rainy day. So, even now, not to be spendthrift, but to just be mindful and to say, there's certain things that we don't have to entertain. The society really pumps to us, and that's, all this WAP energy and, the city girl, the tongue, that's there, but that's not feminine empowerment. That's not female empowerment. And I'm just so grateful that we're living in a time of awakening now, that so many women other than myself I've met that are like, oh no, I would never. Even if I had a daughter, I wouldn't let her listen to Meg Thee Stallion. I wouldn't let her listen to Cardi B. I wouldn't let her listen to certain music, because even though these people are saying one thing and selling feminine empowerment, it's actually extremely degrading and really putting oneself in the position of date rape and being defiled mentally and emotionally, and just being really base. To always think outside of yourself that you have to gain this money, or think of, men as a financial come up, is just really backwards. And, you can only maybe practice that thought, that thinking between 18 and 22, and we would hope that women don't go through certain things that I just described, that would have to wake them up and say, this isn't a lifestyle that's going to bring sustainability and sustenance and prosperity to myself. But we're at a time where the spirit is no longer applauded. Like we said, it's just how many likes you get, how many people are following you, and it's unfortunate, because when or if these things were to be removed, what is it that is keeping us fulfilled? What is it that makes us who we are without any Twitter reblogs or anything that's social media inspired? So to gain these relationships and to read from people like, wow, my son's eczema went away. You have to remember that this wasn't something that I thought, oh, I'm going to do this for the mass. I wanted to rhyme, I wanted to act, but then you're like, wow, Hollywood's kind of like this, and this is what I'm experiencing. I don't want to play roles like this, and that's not what's coming to me. So what do? Okay, I have to wait tables. I have to be grateful that I do have a degree, but use my degree of communication enough, just studying human behavior, for something else. So, being grateful that, hey, I went through certain things that I can rely on, like Pilates and yoga and stuff like that, that had, puts you in a position to just be able to celebrate your diet needs or whatever it may be. Because, when you're 16, it's not popular to be a vegetarian. And that's what I was experiencing at 16. But now that I'm 43, I can say I'm grateful I never compromised and ate meat, during those years. So you get better, you get healthier, you stop with the pizza and the bagels and the cream cheese. But it's a process. Some people jump in and are right in wave, which is dope. And some of us go through the cheese diet and the soy diet and the replacement meat diet before we realize, oh, we can be fulfilled without this, and we don't need overproduction of wheat, because that's actually what stimulates, produces eczema, is that mucoid, that overproduction of mucus in our system. So when people write like that, it's really just the marjoram and the, the lavender and the calendula and the helichrysum and the, sandalwood, that really is just calming our irritation, calming our skin, and bringing a little pH balance back to us, and just reminding us that essential oils and botanicals and plant-based things are sustainable and are really healing for us, just emotion. And then saying, well, how can I prove that? By literally using all your own stuff and trying to set an example by being honest with oneself. Like, I'm a vegan, but not really, because me personally, I really like pizza. So because I've tried to understand my own dietary needs and say, I like eating foods that also emotionally make me happy, where I'm not compromising too much. Pizza is something that I eat twice a month, and I'm very grateful. I have my little ginger shots after and my apple cider vinegar, but I like pizza, and I like eggplant parmesan that's not breaded, but that has a little real mozzarella on top and all that good stuff. So I have done certain things in my own, diet with him and myself to say, look, we don't have to go to the extreme anymore because we found our balance and have been living like this for 20 plus years. So, other people might have a different journey, but again, you don't compare that and judge people through compassion. You say, look, no doubt, you eat turkey, whatever. I don't, but again, there's a balance for whatever someone might be experiencing. So to really know what it is that is working for you and to follow that, that's really why I really was, invested in making something that was going to be long lasting for all of us. Once a couple people started writing, it inspired me to do more. And they say, okay, it's summertime. Now I need a mosquito repellent. Now I need a deodorant. Now I need not just this face wash. I'm about to come out with a new one. It's ridiculous. It's going to be, you're going to see. But I'm going to come out with Virgo this week. I just got the label made. And, all of it is to really just teach people, hopefully through things that we love, like clothes, like, I don't sew. So finding our own balance and thing being done. I timed myself. I spoke for 8 minutes, Saturn. Gone.
No, that's okay. Listen, it's a good segue because you were going, you're here and there, but you talked about the eczema because there may be people that are listening who themselves or their loved ones, suffer from eczema or skin problems, and you're so graciously this time have your products nearby.
I do.
So you were talking about, we'll go back to
10 minutes I want to spend because I don't want to take away the time that I know people want from him.
Right. But there's somebody that's going to want to hear that a product that you have. I'm going to do a PSA for this product. I know
right.
This is my rosemary base. Yeah, that's the bottle that it normally comes in. Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm going to say that this stuff is the truth. And this shampoo, which I'm almost out of, as you can see. That's what's up. My hair is freshly washed 2 days ago with this.
Absolutely. Awesome. And, it's really came out of frustration again of not finding things that worked long term. And I didn't want to do the glass bottles, no disrespect. I really wanted stuff that families could use. And we're very tangible people, but I drop my hair oil every week in the shower and on thick. So I didn't want glass, and I just really wanted to make a variety of stuff by really incorporating all the teas and herbs that I've, been grateful enough to use throughout the years. There was a couple spots in New York that I really should tap my hat off to. Just a lot of apothecary shops that I really used to frequent. There was one right off of West 4th Street. Remember that one with the lady with the cat? Aphrodisia. But I mean, amazing herbs in there. And it's not open anymore. But point being, I would spend like lunch breaks, afternoons. So it was just really just, the Garden of Eden book. There's a lot of little books that were really dope that I just really was like, wow, how do I use? There's got to be a way, if the skin is the largest organ in the body, that I can incorporate all of this stuff and make my own gel-based cleansers that are going to be made with olive pomace and all the stuff that I only get a drop of in store-bought or in other products. So not to disrespect, but to really just take a little time and responsibility and say, there's going to be a time that teaching yoga in a studio is not going to be something that I can do if I don't do X, Y, and Z. So I'm always grateful for certain limitations because a limitation will open an invitation for something else great. So whenever like I said, it's great stuff cooking. I love cooking, but unless I'm going to do a cookbook or unless I'm going to just get a sponsorship, I'm just at this, I'm peaking. I'm not doing, it's not going over the top. And I don't like necessarily not feeling appreciated when I feel like I'm giving so much of my time and stuff. So to have something that I'm not seen in, I'm very appreciative because, I don't know what I would do if I didn't have the voice of the people that just told it. Once you feel it and understand why there's no shea in it and why there's like real rosemary in it, it's for digestion. And the Virgo is going to have a little real cranberry real cranberry, like we throwing that in there. Cranberry, I realized, does not expire for like 5 months if it's an oil. So I tested it by putting a real So I'm really, the cranberry for the digestive, because we're Virgos, we need a little of that, but I'm combining it with a little coffee and some lime for the scars again, because everybody, I just got another just amazing testimonial about someone's scars and their burn with the Victory Road. That means the world, because this really did come from me having a lot of spider bites and scars. And, I didn't want to have plastic surgery or go through the burn, silicone stuff. And, there's silicone that strips that you put on your scars, not silicone, but people get it. So we'll take some time, but let's jump back into some knowledge shit, and then we'll come into it. I literally am going to do this. I'm going to put some labels on. Y'all can look at it while he's singing, because I really feel like I'll be sorry if I don't, as you guys are talking. So continue. I'm just going to do a couple things.
I wanted to bring up, and I shared this yesterday, Sunday on my show. Aseer. Are you familiar with this book? It's called Generations, the History of America's Future from 1584 to 1569. Yeah. So I shared this, an excerpt from this on Sunday's show, and on page 381, he talks about the cycles and stuff. We're talking about what's going on and what's been going on. Everything, I think there's like about 4 cycles, and then they repeat. Right. So this book was written in 1991, right? And the interesting thing is, some of the people on here may have been on my live. I know it was not everybody, because I didn't have this number of people. But anyway, this book was written in 1991, and it says, it has a title or a section called Enter the Crisis of 2020. Mm-hmm. And it says, when will this crisis come? It says the climactic event may not arrive exactly in the year 2020. Well, it did. Mm-hmm. But it won't arrive much sooner or later. A cycle is the length of 4 generations, or roughly 84 years. Right. If we plot a half cycle ahead from the boomers, awakening, and find the 44th anniversary of Woodstock and the Reagan Revolution, we project the crises lasting from 2013 to 2024. If we plot a full cycle ahead from the last secular crises and find that 88th anniversary of the FDR landslide and Pearl Harbor Day, we project the crises lasting from 2020 to 2029. Mm-hmm. By either measure, the early 2020s appear fateful. Mm-hmm. That's the only part I want to read. Book written in 1991. Yeah. Well, a lot of stuff is fairly thick. Mm-hmm. And they knew back then that we were going to enter a crisis based on the fact that everything happens in cycles. And I guess my question to you, given that this kind of knowledge, it's the same thing as like, people who have knowledge of astrology, and they can, project your astrologer. So that you can look forward as well as backwards and even now. So given that, from a standpoint of, their knowing of the fact that we were likely to enter into a crisis in 2020, where do you, as an astrologer, among and a man of letters, so forth, an erudite scholar, where does that put the Moorish man or woman, the melanated man or woman, in terms of preparing for this so-called next 9 years, this year, and it says approximately 9 more years, 2029. How do we survive? Do you see us, I think the goal is to get back to a place that we were prior to falling, so to speak, from our place of prominence and ruling the globe almost. Yeah. Do you see this as an opportune time for melanated men and women to come together and prepare for that? Or do you see this as a potential slide further into some, degraded state if we keep on following on the path we're on?
Sure.
Well, I mean, if we want to take it back, if you read, there's a book called Time in the Technosphere, and you can also read a more ancient that gets into the time cycles, which scientists refer to as the precession of equinoxes, which is basically the calculated aspect of each age multiplied by its time frame, on top of it being 12 of those. So, right, 2,136 years is an age. So within that, let's say within every age, if you break it up by, uh, like in the old days, you lived, you died younger, but you did more. You know what I'm saying? In these days, you'll die later, but you'll do less. You see what I'm saying? Because there's a contraction and a interaction of energy as it moves itself forward. Because what we are not understanding is that creation exists not just for the benefit of us, but exists because it has been willed to do so. So it does not follow the pre-described laws that we've been convinced that it does. So the reason why they make a state ordinance, for instance, example, they have to make a state ordinance for you to mow your lawn, because if you don't mow your lawn, eventually your lawn is going to get and turn into a damn jungle. You understand what I'm saying? Because if you don't have a maintenance or a sanitation situation, not only forget the garbage, what's going to happen is nature's going to take everything back. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So in that cycle, human beings have placed themselves at the center of it all. The same way, at one point, everybody talks about Egyptology and Osiris and Horus and all that. But when they get into the earlier stuff, they don't want to get into the periods where things really weren't really that good. You know what I'm saying? Where things were actually really horrible. And they want to gloss over all of that. So they want to only focus on the the meritocracy of it. See, this is what we did. This is what you're worthy because your people build pyramids. You see what I'm saying? This is the other idea of consciousness. You giving yourself worth based upon what the people who look like you did before you. That's cool. But if you're not doing anything comparable to that, then those aren't your people. You're just reading about people and you're trying, you know what I'm saying? Like you're doing your thing in your reality, which is if you're them, you'll have to take their experience and move it forward. However, our society, well, not our society, but people who are within our society have made themselves complacent on the idea that it's always going to be like this. So when you hear the black man say, "Oh, I ain't never going to change," you understand? That means that it's never going to change for him in his reality. You understand? Because this is the reality. Speak it, so mote it be. You understand? But we don't realize that the same Bible that he used to enslave you with, he now is a slave to it too. Which means that whatever prophecies he's trying to get off to go with his little underground, club situation agenda, he has to perform the rituals the same way all the time. Because if not, the more he messes up, the more it's going to backfire on him. So the time in which what we would perceive as karma is catching up to these people is immense. The only different reason why it's not coming is because there are a lot of us that still believe that it's our karma too. You see what I'm saying? Like when you watch comedians and these people and they talk about, oh, well, we bombed Afghanistan or we did this. No, you didn't. I didn't bomb Afghanistan. You see what I'm saying? I didn't do that. I'm not even a citizen of the United States. You know what I'm saying? I'm a non-US citizen national because my people were here before the thing was established. So because I have knowledge of that, nothing that they want to write, nothing they want to get me to conform to in this reality to benefit them that negates me is beneficial to me. So therefore, I have a choice whether or not to go along with it or to stay my course and do what I need to do. And what happens is when our people get to these positions, you know, they may decide to put the pill in the girl's drink. You know what I'm saying? They may decide to, you know what I'm saying, entertain this person knowing that she was just with the dude that set him up before. You dig what I'm saying? Like, people will let their ego put them in situations that they don't need to be in, all to feel like they're in control when they know they're not. So our enemy understands that about us because we've integrated into his society since Brown versus Board of Education. So from that point now, from that day, all of the busing, remember, all of the busing was black folk going to where white folk live. But that means that black folk had their own communities, their own societies, and they were now taking their children and shipping them to hostile environments. Do you know what I'm saying? Under the guise that Lyndon B. Johnson was going to protect them, right? When Johnson was really just trying to reinvigorate the base like he always did, because he came up manipulating the black vote. When he was a little boy, something happened. They told about it in the movie Charlie Wilson's War, but they make it like it's Charlie Wilson, but it was really LBJ. And he was, this dude poisoned his dog or did some stuff with his dog. And then what he did was he knew that he was running for sheriff. So he went to go back the other dude, but they didn't have enough votes. So he went to the black community and basically offered to drive them to the polls to vote for them. And when they got there, he was just like, well, I ain't told you how to vote or whatever, but you know, this dude, he killed my dog. So, you know, black folk, like, oh, look at this little white boy, boom, he get his person in. He been in politics ever since. They're realizing what? Manipulating the black vote will allow me, right, the compassion and all that, but it also gives me the spiritual backing, because these are the true landlords of the land that my people, his people, have dispossessed and have put under this or education that now makes them think that they're strangers in their own land, when really this guy just came and they just flipped the ownership. Not only flipped the ownership, but flipped everything that we understood about who we were prior to that. My grandmother ain't never talked to me about being from Africa. You understand? And I never thought about that until Roots came on. And then that's what it was. But then it was not until 30 years later, I find out that that was a hoax, that wasn't even real. So if Alex Haley will lie to me and they will create entire universities, entire degree system, accreditations behind this work that was a plagiarized fiction that had us become basically seen as less than human in the eyes of the world. All to benefit who? Us? Our ancestors wasn't doing that. Our ancestors was fighting for what they lived for because it was their land, and it still is. The problem, though, is we have a bunch of buck dancers that will continuously make movies that make you look like you never had nothing here, and then put some emotional heartstrings in it to make you and I feel like they actually we're being progressive about the story. How are we being progressive about the story when all the stories either take place during slavery or civil rights or the drug era? What are we doing? So again, you can't be against slavery and then be for Christianity. You know what I mean? Like, you can't be for you can't be against rape but then advocate for the rapist. You see what I'm saying? Like, you can't. But this reality is making them think that they can do that. So those of us that are sober-minded, for lack of a better word, and understand what we need to do, have to understand that it's not about our generation. It's about protecting the children now. That's all it's about. Anybody not talking about what we're going to do with the children, how we're going to protect the children, where's the children at? Anybody that's not low-key obsessed about that right now is probably down with the shits, as they say. So that means everybody's suspect until they not. You know what I'm saying? And this is the reality we're in. So this is the same political climate that was in during what they call the Cold War, when you had the overall collapse of the German and Japanese system, right? And now you had the United States, which really owed Russia a big debt for the numbers they put up in the war. But instead, they wanted to take most of the scientists. So that caused Russia to take a defensive position, right? And then that became the Boer War. And then Eastern Europe, Africa, places like Angola, Uganda, you see what I'm saying? Places like Watts, these became the ground zeros for this war that ushered in crack, cocaine, methamphetamine, see what I'm saying? Horse, all of this, gas, ice, they had like designer drugs after a while. To now where they shut all of that down. Trump, drunk, shut all of that down. So they had to basically find another way to make money. And that's when the trafficking and the children as commodities became specifically the underground currency. And then that's an explosion of that. Go ahead,
I'm glad that you made that point because, again, if we're not advocating for anyone to participate in that system that they call, voting and election. But if you are going to do it,
if you are
going to do it, then you need to be armed with the truth and you need to know how the so-called Black community, because they don't respect us as melanated or Moorish, but the so-called Black community has been and is continually being pimped by both sides, but mainly by the demo party, or if you will, because they feel like they're entitled to us. But when you mentioned LBJ and how he went in and played on the heartstrings of these people that they traditionally do come in our communities and offer rides. And they normally have people that look like us that work for them that get up, to go. But I believe that in the 60s, when Martin Luther King, aka Michael King, was bailed out, if you will, by Kennedy.
That's right.
That was the same thing that was done. He was endeared to us, but when you look at things with a different perspective, when your eyes are open, now you can go back and say, why did JFK, who was running, bail out MLK? Because by doing so, even though he never said that he was going to vote for him, it was known by our community that he was the reason that he was released from prison. It was just before the election. And so what it did is it engendered a lot of, hey, maybe they're not so bad. That I'm talking about the Democratic Party. And hence, it was another way of pushing us, because I remember a state senator here in around 1989, 90, when I was interviewing him, he told me, he said, and these were his words, he said, Black folks wasn't always Democrats.
Right.
He said, we said Black folks was Republican. And so I said to myself, this man was up in age. He okay. All right, Senator. He was a senator, a state senator. I thought he didn't know what he was talking about.
That's that old Freemason wisdom right there. He put it without saying nothing.
Right. So when I later on, was much later, not even right then, researched what he was saying and found out what he was saying to be true. I mean, we sat, and we were talking about not the Republican Party, but we were the Republican form of government, right?
Majority. We 1 in 50 so-called Blacks and so-called 20 whites, but these whites was like fair-skinned, so-called mulatto. No Caucasian people was running, calling no shots here up until the 1900s. If you look at when the Black Republican Party was founded, it was founded in when? 1867. When did the Civil War start? 1864. Well, technically they'll say 1865, but I would say 1864, and then ended in around the same time. So that coupled with now what we'll call Reconstruction, you see what I'm saying, was these descendants now of the original government that again was connected to the greater empire that's now cut off from that since 1791. And now everybody individually got to deal with where they are as individual fiefdoms, kingdoms, nations. Then you have this foreign power that's now trying to come in, terrorize these communities to the point where the people got to go. And then now they come and then founded on it, and now they start to run the community how they want, and they keep doing this back and forth, and this is all to go against the original Republican government that's still functioning, to the point where all of the again, you can read Congressional Globe or the Congressional Record of the annexation of Texas of 1845, in which it clearly delineates that the land belonged to the ancient Mauritanian peoples and their so-called Indian associates. These Indian associates are the people today we were at that time with a dark-skinned so-called Mongol, I'm gonna say Mongol, but real Asian, Siberian-looking so-called Indians. They were referred to as Zambos because the Moors were taking brides from these Siberian refugees that came over from an invasion of people from what they now call China or Asia in the 13th century. So this is the problem. We get all of this history jumbled up, convoluted, and then we're always put into, say, slave, for instance. So anything after Reconstruction that dealt with an original person, even if he had prominence, they would use the word slave. But remember, the term slave was genetically or racially or phenotypically applied to Slovenian people up until that time, and still is. You understand? So this was the first transfiguration. This is a spell where they take the English, which is a language where you can say anything and make it mean anything, even if you don't mean that, and then apply it to a people and then create a system around that supports that myth by taking a generation of those people you're doing this to and re-educating them to believe that that's what it is, or forcing them in situations like, well, this is Grenada and all that. It'll still be Grenada, but we're going to basically run it for like 80 years. So you can stay here, but during that 80 years, you got to abide by how we want to do it. And when we agreed to those things, see what I'm saying? This is what became the chipping away at us as a universal people. And this is where we go from Moors, you see what I'm saying? Or Moravitum or Moravid or whatever to Morenos, right? To Mudejars, then to Negros, right? Then Negritos, right? Then we keep going down to then niggers, right? Then we keep going down niggas. Then we keep going down to Africans, right? Then it's Afro-Americans, then the Afro, what was the other one? Afro-Americans, then to African-American, then back to Black. You see what I'm saying? And now we're back to what? African-American. You see what I'm saying? So that means every 25 to 125 years, they switch in the designation on you, but they don't do that to nobody else because everybody else took our designation. And now they're walking around like those pyramids in Egypt wasn't built in the 1850s to 1855. Look it up. They show you pictures of them building them. So that means then when we speak of ancient Egypt, when we speak of ancient time, we're talking about everything over here because all the old stuff over here. But guess what? They let that grow over. they let nature take all that. See what I'm saying? They Central Park, Prospect Park, all over. There's a whole place called Cotton Canyon in Utah. And it's a row of pyramids. Pyramids, straight pyramidions. There for thousands upon thousands of years before there was even a thought of what we perceive white or Black or any of that. So my thing is, if you as a so-called conscious person could tell me about 50 million kings over there in Egypt, but you can't tell me one king here in America, and you live here and never been there, then you're under the spell too. Allah just took one of the biggest devils in the world, what was his name? Melville Hershkowitz, who is the father of Afrocentricity. He is the Khazarian Ashkenazi Jew who decided that he was tired of the Schwarzers, that's you and me, feeling at the bottom and not knowing what their history was. And he decided he was going to rewrite it all. And he went to Egypt himself and saw whatever he saw over there. Now, remember, I told you they started building Egypt up over there from 1858 to about the late, let's say late 19th century, like 1958, 1960s and all that. Because remember, there was no Egypt in 1912. There was no Saudi Arabia in 1912. There was no Italy in 1912. None of these places existed. They didn't become republics or states until the late 60s and 70s. So when we watching these movies about these places, what are they talking about when these places didn't even exist historically? That's why history takes what's called artistic license, in which they can say whatever they want. And then they practice a form of iconoclasm, where they can take somebody, like you seen them, everybody's seen that movie World Trade Center with Nicolas Cage. And it was all about that. And he was playing the dude. The dude he's playing in real life is actually a black man, right? So that also means then that they run a game on you. A lot of these statues you think you're taking down, that because they are phenotypically look like white people, because they're made in the romanticized style. See how the white man always got a way to frame the lie. You're taking this statue down, you thinking this person is white and was a slave owner or whatever, but really the person was probably black. Because remember, no white people had no power in the country like that until 1900 and after. That's why they had to fight World War I, World War II to wipe all of this stuff out, to finish Reconstruction. So that way by the 60s, they could bring you into the new Reconstruction education, which was culminated in the court case, Roe, what was that? Brown
versus Education.
And it was from there, you can track from that point on, black people started going all the way down. And they started with what? Education, by doing what? Taking the first and the second generation, flipping them up, right? Putting them back in the community. And now what? Please.
Also by rewarding them through these bachelorettes, through type of degrees.
Beads.
Just creating, like I've read of just the whole degree system, but just creating degrees, because if you know this and you graduated from this, then this is the prestige, this is the inner club, this is what's rewarded to you. So now there's an investment to be a part of the same group that is actually destabilizing. It has been destabilizing not only our people, but people and all over the world. So it's not just about melanated people, but this has affected people that think that they're white and come into shit on some power play or I'm white, when in actuality, well, no, if I were to really do, the knowledge to your last name, my people ran your people through the ground. But it's not about that. It's just to say you don't want to always approach a situation as, hey, you should love me because I know that back in the day my people enslaved you and now I'm not. It's like, no doubt, thanks for loving us, but that's not all of what happened. When you give people the thought that they always were running the show and were running you, it can be a little bit of an ego imbalance. It's just to say that, it's not to say anyone needs to run anyone, but there doesn't need to always be this quiet hierarchy of, you're lucky to be around us, right? You're lucky to ascend to these heights of scholastic important. It's really a cracker. But, if there's a bunch of Black folk that even are celebrated and have been rewarded for such, then, we look like we're talking a bunch of trash, because Quincy Jones said, once he ended up working for Frank Sinatra, that's when everything else opened up for him. He was kept from other aspects of classical and from music until he worked with this man. And then that's when he was able. And then I said, okay, there's negative. And then the positive is, well, Frank Sinatra was, a little sided. He definitely switched up some hotel laws and the way that a lot of Black folk were treated traveling as musicians across, the country and here in the state. That's a great thing. So good looking, right? But at the same time, what would have taken place if people like Quincy were to say, wow, I know all these Black musicians. What if we were to create our own pop, our own, our own hierarchy of fabulousness, and just not necessarily feel as though we need to be a part of what these white folk are doing. I wonder, and this is always what I talk about, I wonder what life could be like, or what would have been created if these amazing minds and these great musicians and performers and, theologians were to do if in being a part of the Yale alum or the Harvard alum or the Frank Sinatra inner circle Italian mafia, because it was really just like a mafia.
These are people that killed Kennedy.
Right. So, I always.
But when we did, they killed, I'm just thinking, you said, what would it have been like if like that? Sam Cooke was trying to do that. And next,
Sam was wonderful. But
yeah,
I always talk to Sam. I just thought
And with
about
Bobby
him.
Womack, though.
Bobby Womack is kind of like Nas and Jay-Z with, and I made this analogy the other day because I was like, Nas came out with some music, and I said, did Jay-Z say he was coming out with something? He, like 3 hours later, was like, yo, you're so funny. I said, well, if you really look back as a hip-hop aficionado, I like to call some people, I won't call myself, but I remember every time Nas came out with an album, this is back in the day when I was like, 1992, 93, right after Jay-Z would come out with an album. So we literally looked it up the other day, and it is by far, I don't know who in his life is like, anytime Nas does something, you got it. And it just made me think of Bobby Womack and Sam Cooke. Like, wow, that's kind of the energy with, you got to be aware.
Your people is always the ones.
Sometimes your own people will be your enemy like that. But, that I'm not saying anything about any. It's just when things happen like that more than 5 times, it's not a coincidence.
It's beyond the probability.
So
what you said though, but Aseer, is the fact that when you talked about how the Reconstruction period and so forth, and I was just talking about this, like I said, when dismantling history, my thought was, how could so-called Black Wall Street, Tulsa, Oklahoma, become so, if we were enslaved for as long as we allegedly were and under the conditions we were, how did that community become such a flourishing, prominent community in such a short period of time, unless they
talking about what happened? It was existing for a while.
Existed. These are the so-called Indians. I'm sorry. Yeah, these are the same people. And they talk about the Trail of Tears that wound up in Oklahoma. That's them. That's these people. These are the same walls from the Yamassees and the Muskogee and the Chickasaw, all of these different clans. These were the original so-called states, so several states of the original Union or confederacies. But there was a lot of them. You had the Monacan Confederacy, the Haudenosaunee Confederacies, the Seneca Confederacy. You understand? That was just the thing. But what united them was that we was all under the laws of Guyanaschwa, and we was connected again by the fact that we had the genetics connection from the ancient ones all the way down in what we now today call South America, all the way up. So when we think of the Maya, we're really saying the Creek. And when we say the Maya and the Creek, we really saying the Yamasee. You see what I'm saying? And we saying Yamasee, we really saying Choctaw and what they call Siskiyou, which is Choctaw, and then Tsalagia and Anahuia, which is Cherokee, and then all of the sub ones within that. You see what I'm saying? But all of these individual beings or clans or prides were the ones that were doing either domestic work or the international. So once our means of production was cut off by fighting all of these successive wars from 1492 to 2020, you see what I'm saying? We
were fighting the colonizers.
We were right, but these colonizers we talk about is like our English cousins in them with their white slaves coming over here and basically being like, you know what, y'all come over here, y'all my slaves, but at night I want y'all to run out there and make some stuff and then get back by morning. But if you get caught, it's going to be on you. And then some of them would try to run for freedom. That's why you get the militias in Virginia, where you had nothing but armed so-called black men that was there to keep white people in control, because that was one of the biggest slave pens for white folk in what we call Eden, which we now call Virginia. And all of them, when these so-called our European cousins got our native cousins here to then adopt their law pattern, how they did business, now our natives here fell under their jurisdiction, right? And then they allowed their white slaves to basically be the ones to enforce it here and there. You did, while all of the money went back to Europa, where they was all at. Henry Black, George Black, Charles Black, all these people Black, Albert Black, Wilhelm Black, what's his name? Otto von Bismarck, Black, Henry Stanley Martin, who established colonialism in Africa. You have a bunch of old aristocratic blacks that was in Africa at a certain point, and they decided they're going to start their expansion. And what they want to do is go into what we call Africa. It's in the 1800s. And so they all put up their monies at the so-called Belgian conference, put their money up, and then they decide at different points to go in and invade. And they invade, make whatever deals they do, whatever, subjugate the people, bring their white slaves in to do their bidding or whatever. But then while they're gone, their white so-called squires, esquires, bankers, right? The whites that's you doing they work for them, they decide, well, look, they gone. So we're gonna say they abandoned their thrones, and now this is the era of the independent states and our pseudo-democratic socialist republics or whatever. And this is when you see these little places. This is when Austria, it goes from being the Austria-Hungarian Empire, right? And then they break that up into Bosnia and Herzegovina. This is where we go from having the Austrian Empire or something like Prussia to it then being Germany. You see what I'm saying? This is when you go to from what they call the Bundstin government, which was the real black German government, the Moors running it up there, to now what they call I don't know what they call it now, the German Confederate stuff. And so they exile them. So now they're there. They're like, well, we got to stay. But we can't let them know that you know what I'm saying? So they basically become the heirs to all of the conflicts, because now they're basically engendering themselves into these people's lives as Europeans, but now they got them dressing like them and all of that, while low key, they in the background reaping the benefits. Up until, that's why you see all the Africans today wearing the European wigs in their parliaments. This is why all the African leaders, after they established their independence, all had white European wives. You see what I'm saying? Because that was the custom, to raise the white slave wife, have the baby with her, and then she looks over the malcontents that's black or whatever that we don't want to necessarily deal with anymore. And so they instituted this policy in which, remember the movie with Forrest Whitaker? What was it called? It's called The Last King of Scotland, right? About your man Idi Amin.
And that a fish called Wanda, which is crazy, but it was all about the way the parliament was.
Yeah, the parliament.
And how that was.
His real name was Henry, because he was from Gloucester, because his ancestors traced him from Henry V from Gloucester and the House of Gloucester in Scotland. That's why they had the bagpipes and all that at the end of the movie when he died in real life. But he was running Uganda, you see what I'm saying? Because he was from the line of Europeans that was born in Uganda and was running it. You see what I'm saying? And so now in Europe now, the white boys, they done set up whole new fake republics like here in America, right? And now they done moved all of the white people in who were displaced after World War II, right? And now they come live in the place or whatever. This is the language, gave them the education, and then within what? It only take what, 20 years? After 20 years, that's between what, 1900 and 1920. You got a whole new world.
And then in 1921, you have the Tulsa Massacre.
Thank you. But see, that was the last aspect of it. And what I'm starting to think is it might have been still native Moors. These is American Indian so-called Moors, i.e. Black Americans, that was oil barons and stuff and was running and making all types of stuff happen. A lot of these people we think was white is really black. And so these guys would do what the European ancestors would do. Let's get the white people and pay them some money to go shut them down, so that way we could basically come in and buy up everything as it is. That's what I'm saying, wholesale. This is what I'm starting to think, because it started in Wilmington, Virginia, and ended up in Tulsa. So this was happening throughout. It was a whole campaign in which all of the so-called white brigands decided that they was all going to come up, but it all happened through what? The Ku Klux Klan, the Democratic Party, the Wide Awakes. This is who the BLM is patting themselves up after. People should look that up. The Wide Awakes. These degenerates. And their symbol is the all-seeing eye. These
knew the symbol, but I didn't know what the engendering energy was.
Yeah,
like what it really.
That's where they all bringing this. Where all this coming from, and they use this to destabilize the government. So what happened? The black so-called Republicans, if they were slaves, how then were they able to read and write enough to make themselves Republican to actually vote in a government or Senate that allegedly wasn't theirs and allegedly run by all white people? How did that happen? Because it wasn't. There was no white people running nothing up until the actual collapse, and the black Europeans decided to go again into Africa, left the white people to run the store, and they all got together behind the white supremacist banner in what what they refer to as the Union Society of 1863 in the Magna Carta, in which they remade everything, put themselves under Rome, back under Rome, established the Masonic jurisdiction between the North and the South. And then those that didn't want to fight, that's where they went to war with. So when they talk about the war with the North and the South, the layman thinks that it's the geography. No, they're talking about the Northern Masonic jurisdiction versus the Southern Masonic jurisdiction. And there was more Moors in the Southern jurisdiction that went all over the planet, because these were the true Moors who had descended from the original mariners that eventually freed and accepted these crackers and then made them Masons, i.e. Masons, and then took them from the state at the time, because at the time they were just called Perigenes Albanus Gauls. They didn't have a designation as a people. They had no nations. None of that was given to them. They were the slave race of the earth. Not because I say so, but because that's how it was. And the whole thing came between us deciding how we were going to come out of that institution. And while we were doing that, our European side decided that they was going to keep it going. And they was going to get us to get down with their land and then eventually supplant us with them and then tax all of us. And then that's what they did. Because when they hear them talk about the Knights of Columbus, that was started by a black man. That's a black man. That organization was started like in the 20s. So when you read David Icke books and he's talking to you about the Knights of Columbus going all the way back to Columbus period, he lying to you because it didn't exist. Why?
But I just saw a picture of something that Dane Calloway did about Easter egg. He does this Easter egg Sunday. In this particular one, he shows a picture of how the original person that became to be known as Christopher Columbus was somebody Colombo. And his picture, when you see the original picture, which was done by a Moorish artist of him, he was a melanated man.
It's from the Cologne. His name is not even Columbus.
Right, Cologne, and he was melanated.
Yes.
And so he was showing how by the time, again, as I said, we have to dismantle his Tory. Because you even said brigand. Tory is a brigand. Tory is a thief. Tory is a robber, a lie. And they have stolen their way into our culture, our I don't even want to say our history, because we don't have his story. Now I know what his story is. It only belongs to the one who created it.
That's right.
And they have interjected themselves into everything that is our reality, flip the script, turn the world upside down, inside out, and just put themselves everywhere. And I guess the part for me is how, and I hear what you're saying. You send these people off, you have these trusted servants. You know where my treasure is, you know where all my stuff is. I'm trusting you to handle my business for me. But these Albions were not us. And in their heart, their loyalty, again, I'm told that at some level that there were maybe extraterrestrial assistance to these Albions to help them. And I don't know what.
Look at it like this.
To bring them technology and so forth for the overthrow and so forth.
Look at it like this. If you exist in a place, right, and that place didn't have lighters, and then I showed up with a bunch of lighters, right? Everybody wants my lighters, right? But now everybody feel like regular fire is whack. You see what I'm saying? So it's like when you see somebody with a torch, it's like, that torch, that's whack. We on the lightest thieves, right? So now I got you. So now when I bring a flashlight, you understand what I'm saying? Now it's not even about the lighters. Now it's about the flashlight. The flashlights is popping now. So now if you got a lighter or you got a torch, now you're obsolete. You see what I'm saying? But then what happens now when I come in and bring a spotlight? Now spotlights is popping. Now everybody got to get a spotlight. Anybody that don't have a spotlight is popping, right? But people don't remember that before the torch, they was in the dark. People done forgot because of marketing that light is light. When you in the dark, you don't care what type of light you got, so long as it's helping you see. And what I'm saying is that they want to take all of this mythology and then
make
it into what we perceive the reality, and then we push the fiction as the reality on one another. So they don't got to do nothing. So everybody wants to be Egyptian. Everybody wants to be from Kemet. Everybody wants all that. But when you start talking to them about like Herculeopolis Magna, and what it was like during the Hereshef period, they're gonna look at you crazy. What's that? Well, that was what they science referred to as the first intermediate period. And we really researched that, which is almost really nothing you can find on it. But what you do find on it is that this was the period where basically everything you talk about happening now was happening then. And this was our own people doing this to one another, to the point where it got so bad that once Menemhotep the first came in, he started a worldwide process to strip the world of these people that was doing this type of stuff. And it didn't happen wasn't finished until Menemhotep II came and wiped all that out. So when we talk about the Illuminati, we talk about the Freemasons, we talk about all this type of stuff, we're really talking about old school pre-creation evil that has festered in the hearts and the minds of beings, whether they be melanated or not, that were brought up in a system that we can define it as Herculean, or we can define it as satanic, or we can define it as pedophilic, whatever you want to call it. That evil, right, is manifested through the subtlety that it comes through. So therefore, if I create an educational system in which I want to engender your children towards a certain sexual appetite, I have to start earlier, but I have to first make it a law. You understand? But any society that would make a law to protect the rights of the rapists of children is not a society, regardless to what the laws say. And because they created a society that is deeply rooted in this Hereshef energy, this deep angst, this deep evil, this deep eunuch, like at what they call active Statue of Liberty, inverted God energy. This is what they want to pervade to the children more than me and you, because they know that if we don't already made our choice, we're good. They need the children because the children represent the future, and they represent the unfulfilled destiny of the people that they're engendering and do this to. So if you can create a society where people have what I'm talking about, don't care nothing about that, and just look at children as money or vehicles to get money, then the way that we keep this going is by keeping it secret. And the only way you can keep a worldwide secret like that is for all of y'all to go through some sort of ritual in which you know what each other's secret is. And this is the problem with what's going on. What's keeping everything going is the fraternal orders.
But isn't it true that Donald Trump has been exposing them? And you know, like they said, you know, he's an alligator in a swamp. And I said, yep, he probably is. But the thing of it is, he pulled the plug so that you can see the other alligators. Yeah. And these alligators were the ones that we thought were in our corner.
He's doing a great job. And remember, Donald Trump was not a Republican. He came under Roger Stone, who was the fixer for the old Democratic Party under all of that. He came in under the Reformist Party. So he's staying true to what he said he was going to do. Trump ain't never lied about nothing. What the problem is that he is acting, whoever sits in the seat is acting as the archetype of the temperature of how the country is. So he is there reflecting as the double Gemini back to you what your country is. Your country is a duplicitous, not our country, because we're in America, but those people in the United States and the dominions of Rome, under the cess do we trust and all them people that's falling, them people are being revealed based upon the fact that they can't believe that somebody that was with them has now put them on the out like that. But the thing is, as a Gemini, he can have his side, he can see their side, and then he still got his own side. But his own side is, regardless to what, he's not with the kid touching of the children. So anybody that supports that is who we all should be supporting. I'm not saying vote for him. I'm not saying don't vote for him. I'm not saying vote at all, because we're supposed to be voting and electing our own representatives.
Right.
However, you and I, our national government, they seen as abandoned. And then you have a bunch of people out here acting as governments when they're really not. You see what I'm saying? Bringing and getting so-called Black people into trouble that's trying to get out. So why go from one system to get free when the other system you're going into is basically just as constrictive and even worse, more confusing? Talking about.
I'm saying that's the position that a lot of people as individuals find themselves in. It would be nice, but what do you trust? How do you discern when you are just like putting certain pieces together, and you can feel really downtrodden because when you do try to make a move, it's something that is going to get you caught up in, something that is a little bit nefarious. So, you know, unfortunately, it makes people that are really highly spiritual not really want to deal with any of this at all, because when you are in a frequency where you are at least downloading some type of peace and some type of energy that is trying to ground you, you'd rather not deal with any of this at all. And it can be a very big allergen because it's really convoluted and it comes across really loud and distracting. So even as he's talking about all this stuff, and especially when you asked a question about the aliens and you know all that, there was a part of me that was like, I know you did, it's okay. There's a part of me when you asked about the aliens and did white people, it's like we can accept all this knowledge and inhale it and exhale it at the same influence and at the same time, meaning that how much of this are we going to actually digest into our systems that it begins to affect or it becomes reactionary in our health and in our mental sanity. Because again, he can go through this based on his fire and how he discerns energy, but it doesn't necessarily mean that people have the same ability, and it can be really, again, disheartening and can cause a lot of problems in your life if you're trying to solve something or create change and make people believe and all that. All the time I'm like, and we accept all this and then we exhale it, because you're still brought back to self. You're still brought back to arm, leg, arm, head. How are we going to treat each other in the morning? How are we going to raise our children in the afternoon? All of this information is wonderful, but how do we digest it in our whole selves that we can still wake up and have purpose and not go crazy? You know, because listening to Arizona Wilder, David Icke, you know, the reptilian agenda, the this, the 3D, the 4D, the 5D, you end up going, where am I? How? And all of that is to say it's all good and well. It's all grateful knowledge. Where am I in it? How am I going to allow this to influence? What can I create to protect? What part of the trust? What can I understand and basically bite off and chew and digest right now in the now? And is there anybody that I can maybe trust? So that part of it's going to take a little patience and a little time. For us, it took us 15, 18 years to say, okay, this is all, with all this information, how can we find peace and not go crazy and age, still have our glow, still have purpose, still be able to appreciate art and not only there, gotta be a little balanced. So what he's talking about, even with the Gemini, to tie it into the yin and yang, is all of it is relevant, and at the same breath, what is it going to be really relevant to our own evolution, growth, and family stability?
I think people are looking people are looking mainly though for answers, particularly, they do want solutions. I mean, there are lots of times that we are, we're talking about the problem. We do spend a lot of time talking about the problem, and we do spend a lot of time talking about things that have already occurred. But for the most part, we are seekers of what can we do? What is the solution? How do we get, there are various organizations and entities, especially,
because I'm about to step out and label this. I know I'm going to have a lot of work tonight. One thing I was going to say is not to be triggered to be, to think that things that are available online or you can download are real. They are not. They will get you tripped up. One thing you can do is try to remember that anything that is real is going to be protected, and it's going to have to probably take place offline. So you're going to have to trust your spirit and really say, who is selling this and who is saying, look, pay me for my time and for my wisdom, but this isn't something that we should be selling or downloading or trying to understand through a program or a docket or a pamphlet or a class. It's not going to work like that. That's one thing I was going to say. I'm just going to step off so I don't come in and out of the camera, and to give you a little bit of time with her and to label and to say I love you guys and thank you. I'll be right back, but I just wanted to give a couple minutes.
Yeah, what the sister was saying is exactly that. You need to I feel like now is the time where we can be brutally honest with ourselves and not get so wrapped up in what everybody else expects. This is the one time I think in history where everything is blatantly obvious, and anybody that's still trying to justify why a person can get shot with no gun, running away from police and stuff like that, and then still try to bring up arguments about the color or what the man mind state, mental state, whatever. All of that is, again, those are the ops. Those are the people that are working to keep this reality the way it's going. There's no justification for murder of unarmed and civilian people. You know what I'm saying? If there's no justification for the perpetual terrorization of a race of people. You know what I'm saying? We have documented facts that the government created whole programs to forcefully not only move, but also murder and experiment and take original people's land and things like that, do all types of horrible things, create crack, allow crack to be sold to their people, then in jail them, then throw them in jail, then harvest their organs. You understand? All of that's horrible. But the problem is nobody wants to deal with how horrible it is. Everybody wants to deal with figuring out how not to deal with that. And the more you do that, the more you're putting my child at risk, your child at risk, everybody's children at risk, because they don't really care what color the kid is. They just like the black ones because they get to do more with the body parts and the genetics, because we are the key to eating. You saw that, anybody watching the Lovecraft Country, they show you, just like in The Watchmen, they showing you that the key to all is the so-called heterosexual black man unifying with the heterosexual so-called black woman. The more they beat y'all in the head with the opposite, see, the more that stunning truth has never faltered. Nothing negative has ever come from a family that loves each other. Nothing negative. You understand?
You can learn.
And that's what they're trying. BLM is doing just the opposite. They're trying to destroy the family structure. You know, they're going right back to what the Democrats did years ago when they put, you know, women in projects and said, "We'll give you this."
Now women helping them. The majority of the so-called senators, the majority of the so-called governors and black Democrats is doing that is black women. You understand? These are the ones that's working with them to do us all in. So they are just as much as our enemy as anybody else. And anybody saying that they're not that, you see what I'm saying, is the enemy, is the op. And it's that simple now. You have to realize that integration, again, was the worst thing that happened to us, because it took away our ability to defend ourselves and protect our children. And nothing good has come from it. Nothing. I don't care how many black billionaires you got. I don't care how many black CEOs you got. It don't matter, because look at what we have lost in the process. There's nothing killing more black people in America right now than abortion. But we don't want to have that discussion. You see what I'm saying? Because the first thing they're going to do is bring women's rights into it. But I'm not talking about women's rights. I'm talking about the fact that we are in a situation where we have become so downtrodden that we are willing to commit infanticide amongst ourselves. What about us is so wrong that we are willing to get rid of ourselves before we even come here, and then don't even benefit from the excess? Because you know where all of the parts is going. It's going to all of the white people and all of the trans and all of the black people and all of the Chinese people and everybody else, so they could get nice makeup and nice lipstick and lip gloss and coat the space shuttle so they can get closer to the Van Allen belt. This is what they're doing to you. You and I are literal commodities. walking around the street. They feel that they have the ability to do that because they know deep down we don't got our own shit together. The Africans then had 80 years to get their stuff together. They are no farther than us. They're actually worse because they actually took money to destroy their people. You understand? They took money hand over fist, and now they are paying for it. I just saw a clip of a Chinese man who was a big diplomat over there, whatever, and they put a line of African children down on the ground, and he walked on them like a carpet into the damn plane. Yes, look it up. This is what these Africans is letting happen to their own people. So why would you feel that they have our best interest? And I'm not talking about all Africans, because some of them is not with it. Big up to the Wafo tribe in Cameroon. Big up to the fighters in the Tuareg and the Hausa and the Mutabitum out there in the Western Sahara fighting against the interlopers. Big up to the Riffin that's still holding it down in the Atlas. Big up to the fighters in West Papua New Guinea right now holding it down. Big up to the Aboriginal nation that's trying to stop the forest fires, that's trying to stop the kidnapping of another wave generation of children by the Australian government. This is what's going down. Like people act like when you're Moorish American, you get plugged into all of these nationalities because they all come from us. And they'll let you know when you're in your proper person. So the solution, sorry, baby.
No, they should make you that passionate.
Yes.
You become a passionate.
I'm very passionate
people
about my people.
That's also the indicator. But no, I think that's what.
But now passion but see, a passion is being a cis het man now. See, they got signs, they got words now for people like me. That's not even created by
German terminology that was to understand their genetic malady in a sense.
Because the enemy is the heterosexual black man and black woman. That's it. Or the cis het women,
and then
the cis het men.
That we should call ourselves because they're abbreviations and they're really not based in.
You a white supremacist using that dialect because that was created by an organization called the Tides Foundation. Look it up.
Yes, and then if you are, you do have certain degrees. These are the things that they purport for you to be able to educate, the younger generation on. And that's also an issue and a problem because it is a certain language that you have to conform to. It's a certain understanding that you have. You'll start to hear certain terminology, certain language being used by certain people because it's all part of the same program. It's almost like, that whole thing with teacup. It is to really sleep you into a somber to not understand that there's certain things that are way outside of the scope of anyone else's control, and no one has any blueprint on how our mechanics, on how we think or emotionally react and work. We are a work in progress, but when we can admit to our faults and say, look, I was a little this or I might have been a little that, then there's so much room for growth. And for me, it's the balance of understanding all of this is going on in the world, but can I create a trust on my own? Can I look the basics of it up? And then, maybe outreach to someone who has done it before, who has put themselves through, just creating certain things, God forbid. I talk about it with my son all the time, just that are in place so that they don't have to go to a group home or they don't have to be, put with family members.
How about this? How about we create our own society where we have our own group home, our own orphanage,
well, that's what we're doing. But in lieu of, I'm sorry, I was going to say we are, and that's the work that you've been putting in. I've seen you do
right, working towards that. But what I'm saying is that there are people in our community, what appears to be in our community right now, be throwing money in your face in every video you've ever seen.
Absolutely.
You think any of these dudes will go there and actually buy a block? Did you know that you could buy a block in the city? Did you know that the same block you're sitting there selling drugs on, you could buy the entire block and stop the police from coming there if you want? No, because we are not encouraged to have our own. We're encouraged. We're not encouraged to have our own business.
Separatists.
They want you to want you to not listen to a Jaguar Wright so that way you pay more attention to a Meg Thee Stallion. You dig what I'm saying? And these are two black women two original people who, in whatever instance, were definitely hurt. You see what I'm saying? And scarred by this industry. And this industry now is using them. You understand?
Against
to then
each other,
against each other,
lie.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, the time where the actual truth or the healing has to come out.
But that comes from uncomfortable moments, which is what people are, which is what Jaguar is putting people through, which really is not the case. Anyone that speaks their truth or their whatever,
but it's spiritual.
I applaud.
It's still spiritual because the Jaguar is the Olmec.
It's the Olmec cat. Yeah, we talked about that.
The Jaguar people.
Yes.
So she's speaking to us coming from Philly, which is the old capital of the country.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all this spiritual underlying thing. We've reached the 400-year jubilee where we're free of all the negative karma. So they want us to double the negative karma that we're free of now and put it on ourselves.
And that's kind of why I wanted to say it's, having the black energy against the male and the female, or the female and the male, because to me that's also why I thought about it outside of what am I looking at, but what symbolically is being represented as well. So, just thinking about the old and the new, and anyone that's gone through any type of abuse like that, hats off to you for having the strength to share your story and to speak about it. We would hope that it can be from a place of compassion, but sometimes you got to go through the anger to get to a place of all of that other stuff.
And you gotta, not to cut your wisdom, but I would just want to add on, you also gotta accept that hurt people. And this person was hurt. And now this person's hurt is now being amplified as a means to get other little girls and other people to hurt themselves by formulating themselves around an archetype and a lifestyle that doesn't even exist. That's not how real women are. No real woman I ever saw act like any woman I ever see on TV. No real life woman. You dig what I'm saying? But they are now getting real life women to pattern themselves after that, which then make them unattractive to so-called heterosexual men. You dig what I'm saying? So then this is another indemnity. The only way out is the way in. Creating communities that's for our own people, that we do our own thing in and get to relearn what it's like to just be around each other. We can't rely on the Africans to do that. You can't leave here and go there and live in a country full of people that look like you, but again, culturally aren't. And at the same time, your problems are still here. And your problems, right? You are now seen not as what you think you are. You seen as an American living there. They're not also always looking at you as a long lost relative. That's cool for tourism prices and stuff. But when we get to the brass tacks, if it comes down to a native born so-called Somalian or Ghanaian or whatever, you really better have a lot of chips. Because if not, you take what I'm saying? You are still the outsider. So why not, if you already are outsider in your own land, establish land for yourself to live outside of all of the problem, and then you got to worry about police brutality.
That takes money,
you ain't got to worry about
none of
that.
And that takes energy.
And like I said, they have a town right now for sale for $1.7 million.
I know. I sometimes be like,
that's an album.
We could just write you and be like, guess who thing that's donated? Girl,
that would be great, but they scared. They scared.
And it can go down privately.
They scared.
Sometimes I want to be like,
they would rather talk to other people in this community than to talk to me.
It's possible through.
I'm telling you.
Trust I've set up. So anybody ever wants to donate, you can write it off to a tax.
Yeah, we got the whole thing set up. But like I said,
that's what I wanted to ask you. Look, that's what I wanted to ask you about, because many, when it comes to the government structure, the body politic that you have established and how others might be able to get involved. I know, Sister Celina, you talked about last week about you have an international presence with your business is internationally established as opposed to you got established, and other people. I mean, myself and others, we want to know how can we get that knowledge, that information, that training? Do you all offer private consultations or
just going through to make sure that by doing it myself with him. And I say with him because so much of it was form and then plugging in certain history that elongated the validity of what it is we were talking about. So I wasn't necessarily the historian or a historical genius, but having a certain understanding of how to formulate certain documents, and then like everything that we figured out is that you have to make things your own. So how do you do that? And how do you do that in a way that it's received by the rest of the world, but that's also written in a format that's accepted by that type of organization, like that type
So
of.
have you codified it in a way now that if someone said, I would like to
Yeah,
get
that can be best.
consultation.
Go ahead, I'm sorry, sis.
Yeah, could you explain that?
Well, it's like this. As it is established, as it is being established and doing what it's doing, in order for me to really do the maximum for people through it, it has to have its own legs. But to do that, I can't bring people that are not in a proper status aspect into it, because that technically would be like taking property from somebody else. So a lot of Moors, when I came up with talking to you about how you always have to challenge the jurisdiction and challenge this and challenge that. And in going through years of that understanding, which is basically a defensive approach, I started to realize that there was always a dualistic nature to that type of exchange. So there would always be a comeback, a continuance of this when I'm looking to just close it, you see. However, in not knowing how to close, you see, it leaves it open, and they want it open enough for you to trip yourself up, and then boom, you're now dealing with a whole nother issue. So as opposed to just jumping out the ledge and doing certain things, I took the opposite approach, which was looking at my reasoning in what I'm striving to accomplish, not based on what any of the greats like, you know, Hakeem Bey or Jose Pimenta Bey or these great emeritus in Moorish science, C. Freeman L. And what I did the knowledge to was that the defensive approach would then mean that I'm still in a conflict. And conflict is where they deal with and how they exist. So if there's no controversy, there's really no case. Whoever's asking the question is in control. These little things that I peeped myself, that I couldn't get out of a book, that I actually had to see in action. You know what I'm saying? To then be like, oh, okay, so really what is really going on is
the spiritual part of it.
Right. This is where the divine and national movement comes in. Because if you just dealing with the paperwork, just dealing with the commerce, just dealing with earth, you're done. Because you're missing the bird's eye view of what you're dealing with. So we look at space from the top down. So in that, I realized that in creating that the only way that society's running this world is through third party, regardless to who it is. No matter how sovereign you are, there's always something doing business on your behalf. On a layman's basis, that's basically your trust, your estate, right? That's what really indemnifies you or protects you from liability or doing business with people who may not be on that level. Therefore, the only citizens of the United States are businesses, really. You understand? And therefore, the only real people who contribute to the United States are people who own businesses. Everybody else is just renting space. Therefore, if you're renting space, you fall under the 1871 New United States, which means your reward, we got the Social Security welfare system on you. You're a 9-to-5 wage slave. That you're a non-citizen national, i.e. business owner, i.e. self-sufficient. You now are part of the republic. You are now in the true aspect of the family of nations because you are giving back to the society through your national effort. So in that means if that's the case, then I was never a citizen of the United States to begin with. So if I'm defending that I'm not, then that means I'm also acknowledging that I am or I was. So what I have to do is look at from the perspective is that I never was a citizen of the United States. This is what you said that I was. You lied to my mother. You lied to my father. You lied to my people. You disseminated my so-called race. You denied me for my nationality. Therefore, you've injured the trust. So under the laws of equity, the trust cannot be injured. You understand? Equity without remedy is not equity. It is theft. That's a maxim of law. So if I give you something and I expect a certain aspect, and you don't give it back to me, you just rob me. So in doing that, the Moors at that same time came in with an understanding that we needed to have a actual representative form of actual government, but this was not going to happen overnight. So between that time and now, we've been working to really get to that point, and it seems like we're basically there. But I can't say too much about that because it exists in the real world, in the Republic. So the only way that I can build with people on it or come a part of it is if they have to come out of the fiction that 99% of the world exists in. Everybody doing business under the false name without a trust, without an estate, without a last will or testament, without a deed of acknowledgement, accepting what your role in the trust is technically still a war of the United States, and therefore falls under the War Powers Act. You see what I'm saying? And under the Trading with the Enemy Act that says that only anybody that's not a federal citizen is an enemy of the United States.
Wow.
However, we Moors are in amity with the United States through the Treaty of Peace and Friendship of 1787, written the same year as the organic constitution, as the Constitution of the United States of America in General Conference Assembly of 1787. So when we look at the true realm to be an American, we went from the Articles of Association to the Articles of Confederation to the Bill of Rights to the United States Constitution for the United States of America General Conference Assembly, and then finally the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, which then tied it all up into a bow. You see, and that government was the government that technically Washington was supposed to shepherd until the states got back together, but that didn't happen. And then by 1861, by 1812, the situation happens with the earthquake, and then they use that to then start to redress what history was going to be. So government,
brilliant.
Thank you.
Think about.
So government works based upon the investment of the people. Our people have invested a certain idea in what type of government we can have because it's the one we have always had. But we are seen to have abandoned it to go into the United States. So from the perspective of you being a prisoner and I being prisoners of war, we have the right, after the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, to go back to our country and be afforded the rights, the unalienable rights and the duties that go to nationals who are now in amity. That's why they don't like us as Moorish Americans, because we know exactly how to get out of the situation. And everybody else are knee deep or neck deep in it because they don't have a nationality outside one that was given to them. So we are going back to what we have always been by going forward to what we are. Whereas everybody else is working within the framework of what they've been told they are, you see, and then fighting and killing each other to make that true. So therefore, we're the only free people on the planet. And all we got to do is consolidate our base through group economics, through establishing group, trust-to-trust banking, by establishing estates and wills and testaments, and then creating trust and foundations, and give back to our general government that then protects for our mutual protection due to the fact that as Americans, we've pledged allegiance to our state. Our state conceptually is Al-Marak, but in our language, it was the Al-Morocanos Estados, which existed in the Arabic designation of the Maghreb Al-Aqsa, which means the Morocco of the farthest west, because the old Inca name for this place was Moraca, or Maracapania, or Maracapania. So Morocco, so when we say that we're from Morocco, this has existed before there was even an Arab. So when we speak of being Moors and Moorish Americans, we're speaking from the ancient aspect of us reinvesting that within our communities today. But we cannot do that if we're voting in somebody else's democracy, because that takes us out of the republic and then puts us under the jurisdiction of somebody else, who then, now that we're not in our proper person, will try to do what they can do to then take our estates, our trusts, our children, and put us right back in slavery. So that's my suggestion in terms of solutions. So like
you have a class that you do, is it weekly?
Every Sunday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If anybody wants to join, you can hit me up at House of L.
I love you guys now. I've seen you guys do I'm so glad I did some stuff though. So when more comes in, I can at least put
It
these.
is.
I switched it up a little bit this evening. I'm not trying to interrupt, but I usually have these in envelopes already, and I chose not to. So I'm just gonna do a little bit more tonight, and I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry, but I promise, Lieutenant, it's been more than almost 2 hours. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Good night.
But yeah,
Let me put that up. Let me create a. They can contact you at houseofl.com.
Yep, that's HOUSEOFEL at hotmail.com. And what I usually do is people are interested in that because I was like the people. I was out there for years trying to figure it out, taking classes with people telling me to do this. Dudes is telling me that they not this or that, but then I'm looking around and what they saying is not adding up, and then actually trying to apply that, calling people, and then not being able to get any help from them, and in the end coming down to me and my queen. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Getting caught up by being with me, people trying to force me in situations to fall under their jurisdiction that way, so that way they could do what they need to do. And praise Allah, I never turned into that, because in knowing, having a nationality, I also realized help define you and keep you from being demonically possessed. You know what I mean? Like having culture, having a custom allows you and affords you certain protections that other people may not have. So if my culture says that I don't eat meat, then no matter what they put in the meat, I'm never going to get sick from it. You see what I'm saying? Because I don't deal with that. You dig? But other cultures feel like if you don't eat that, something wrong with you. So again, it all depends on whatever. I'm not here to tell anybody how to live. I'm not here to be anybody's anything, leader, cultural advisor, whatever. I'm all of that stuff on paper, but in the end, I started out pagan like everybody else. And in the end, nothing feels worse than getting knowledge from your people and then realizing that your people is also the ones that's hating on your knowledge. That's the worst.
Mm.
And this is where the weak ego stuff come in. This is when dudes start making excuses. Oh, see, this is why I don't date black women, or this is why I don't date black men. This is where this type of thinking come in. And that is in all of our families, yo. And that has to get bred out. You got to breed that out. And you can't do that if you every day going to somebody else and making somebody else's dream come true. At what point are we going to stop doing what these people want us to do and just do us? When are we going to stop saying, okay, I can't make money no other way but selling drugs? No, that's done now. And there's no money in that no more. The money right now is in children. So if you're really trying to get bread like that, that's what you're going to have to start doing. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the ultimate truth right now. That's
when you say children, what do you mean?
Meaning that if you wanted, like people say, if I want to make bread, I gotta go sell dope. If I want to get money, I gotta do this. None of that is making money no more. Dope is not making money that it used to. Crack, none of that is selling, but it's not making the major bread. Oil is not making the major bread. None of that. What's making money now is children, meaning organs coming from children. That's where the money is right now.
And to get away from the child trafficking.
And to get away, that means, so I'm saying, if you're the type of person that feels that you need to get money so much that you're willing to go into the dope game, I'm telling you that there's no money in that no more. That's already figured out. If you want to make money now, you're going to have to go and involve yourself in stealing children, which then makes you an enemy of all of humanity. See what I'm saying? You could live in jail as a drug dealer, but you're not going to make it as a pedophile. You're not going to make it as a child kidnapper. That's number one. The only place that pedophiles get punished in the judicial system is jail, is the prison system. Because the lawyers, the judges, they letting them out. And they are now trying to make it legal. Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, the Black National Caucus, Maxine Waters, Cory Booker, they're trying to make pedophilia legal through the bill that they are trying to pass right now. And they're trying to do it before September 9th, when this trial's supposed to go down, when all the pedo stuff gonna come out. And so just conveniently, right around the time of the election, here come an asteroid. Didn't I tell you they was gonna do that? Didn't I say they was gonna do an asteroid? Now it's coming allegedly by November 3rd, which is very convenient. And then if that don't come, you know what's next? The aliens. There's your aliens. They're gonna come with some white people
working on it
and bug eyes and talk about we're the ones that built the pyramids and all of that. Meanwhile, Aseer in the class, I'll show you in the class the images of them making the pyramid, moving the 1,000 to 200,000 whatever ton stones with a crane and setting it up on the other side of Egypt. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is what's really going on. So there's
a lot of craziness, though. You know, we talked about before we ended the last time. Mm-hmm. I mean, you dropped some serious stuff, like I said. Mm-hmm. And I have, since we were texting each other after that, you know, that information you shared with me, I found some other information that popped up. There's a sister, she calls herself Chinese Black or something, and she's always showing this phenotype, you know, of who's a woman and who's a man. And some of the ones, oh my goodness, some of the ones that she's brought up as not being who we think they are.
Right.
But I've noticed in historically that many of the so-called or ultra, you know, the Rockefeller, those people, they would change the gender. Their little boys would be born, but then they would dress them up like little girls. And for some reason, they begin to change the gender of their children. This thing, we think that this is a new thing.
No, this is pedagogy. It's pedagogy. This is an ancient practice of those. This goes back to the Hereshef people I was telling you about. Like I said, everybody want to be Egypt and Kemet, and I'm this and I'm Patan, all of that. And y'all don't even know, man. Y'all don't even really know what y'all talking about. And why the people from Kemet was, in a sense, put over there. And why there was a separation between over there and over here. Why there was an ancient Kemet or old kingdom and a new kingdom, Egypt. You dig what I'm saying? Because not every culture you're supposed to amalgamate with. And what was going on was the insipid need to use the genetic essence of beings imbued with the energy of Allah, of the eternal creator, and manipulate that for what they call Transangothian purposes. So all of this so-called baby harvesting and this stuff with that grinding that stuff into the bones. Remember all the stories they would read us when we was kids about Hansel and Gretel being eaten by the witch, and then the witch talking about eating Dorothy, and then the troll that lived under the bridge and was going to eat the children. Why was it always a story about eating children? Because this was how they engendered the society. And so this culture, as it was banished in ancient Egypt, started to basically reemerge itself, right, later on in different places. So when they got kicked out of ancient Egypt for doing all of that or whatever, and we shut that down in Hereshef, eventually they wound up in Phoenicia and they started worshiping Baal, right? And Baal was about sacrificing children, right? Same thing. Then after a while, they shut them down there, and then they wound up having to go to Midian. And then that's when Abraham picked up the cult. Wasn't Abraham trying to sacrifice his son? Was he trying to kill his son? Mm-hmm. See what I'm saying? See the connection? You see what I'm saying? Same thing with what's his name? Cleopatra. Cleopatra was killed because she wound up having a son for Mark Antony, right? But Cleopatra, the Ptolemaic line, was the modern version of the Hereshef line that had come back. You see what I'm saying? And when they came back, they started employing the same type of dark, children-based, blood ritual type magic stuff. And then the Moors came, shut that down. So whenever it get too high, we come in, shut it down. So it's the same thing in this society. Then they wound up in Peloponnesia, what they call Greece, under the worship of Hercules. See what I'm saying? And then when you read the labors and all that side of Hercules, same thing with him. He's sacrificing. The way to virtue for him is through a baby. You see what I'm saying? Not even as a resurrection, because these are all part of what they call the Herculean myths or the Herculean dynasties. That again was going back to the Hereshef, and then was taking us all the way back even before what we call creation, which is why Allah brought us in to shut it all down. This is where the giants went, and this is how we get the land masses and all of this stuff happen, because everything is built on the last society or creation that was built on top of it. So the farther down we go, the bigger it gets. The farther up we go, the smaller it gets. So it gets to this point now where the reality has reached the level. Like if you get an Encyclopedia Britannica prior to 1958, they actually have the meter dimension to where the firmament, what they call the firmament or the Van Allen belt, reaches at the top, approximately 385,500 miles straight up from the middle point, let's say, of the equator going straight up. That's when you reach the top. You can't get past that. You understand? But I grew up watching Star Wars and believing that there's a whole space place out there and all of that. Sure. And the same Christians and everything telling me about the Bible and everything's in the Bible, but there ain't no pyramids in the Bible. There ain't no planets in the Bible. You know what I'm saying? So when did all of this come from? How come that I could find, oh my God, how come I could find that was great. How could I find a people and then remake them into what I want, and then get them to support a whole nother reality that didn't exist, and then keep doing that,
yeah.
But our people have been here through all of it. So now we've gotten to the point now where the Herculeans then come back now as Illuminati or Scottish Rite or Order of the Golden Dawn or Prince Hall or Hollywood, you see what I'm saying? Or the United States or Rome or the Vatican. It's all the same thing. And once we as a people realize that everything around us is moving at hyper speed and we're just walking slow through it, you would realize that it's just really one long moment that we've been in this situation, which it can flip like that. So all we need is one generation. We need a group of Moors and individuals that's financially secure, and we need our government to be able to secure that right, and then not force, but through our means that every other person in the world use. Because see, what makes us different is that we not only got our own language is based in the quantum speech pattern. Therefore, it is totally outside of every other dialect that they're using to run this world right now. So not only do we have the right to do all of this right now, we could be doing it right now. So the question is, why we not?
Right.
Because you got a bunch of agents that have been generationally working since 1812 that look like me and you, that's been working with these people, just like Stephen working with Carl Candy and Django. That was the biggest jewel. That's why Django is one of the greatest slave movies ever, probably the best one ever, because it was the most accurate, believe it or not. Because never once did they mention these people coming from Africa, did they, in that movie? Not once. And they called them Mandinkas or Mandingos. Why? Because the Mandinkas came over in the 13th century to help us deal with the Moors from Tartary who came with the Khan to invade. And then after that invasion, the leftover Siberians were left homeless. So we let them stay in the plains and started to call them Zambos or Indians. These are the Native Americans, thank you. These are the Native Americans who acting like they've been here before us. They all from Siberia. That's why Trump talking about he about to deport them. So I'll get to that. They deported us by accepting a designation that they knew wasn't us. They knew that they wasn't the original ones, but they decided to do that because our ancestors treated them like dogs. Keep it real. That's to the ancient Mauritanian peoples. The ancient Mauritanians, meaning the ancient Carthaginians, Phoenicians, Etruscans, Peloponnesians, Mayans, Olmecs, whatever. and the Moorish people. So now that's all of the Mohammedan nations that existed, and their Indian associates. So an associate is not the owner. So that's why they got to get up out the land too. But when I say get up out, I'm not saying that they got to be expelled. But what I am saying is that first in time, first in line. And nobody has displanted or disproved anything myself or any other real Moorish scholars have said since. So until they do, I'm rolling with this. And the only people, and as far as I'm concerned, in dealing with our government and working, expanding it, and talking to these different people internationally, they all with it. No white man, no white woman has ever, no Spanish woman, no China man, no Japanese person has ever looked at me and said, "Oh, you bugging, you just a nigga." None, ever. Ever.
They're like, do it when you're gonna do it, right?
They already know. What other day, real story before we close, I got a story. I'm out like this in the shamag, and then the Arab dude, he's walking by with his friend, and his friend is walking, they stop and they looking, and they stop and they look, and he start laughing. I said, "It's funny, what's so funny?" He's like, "Oh, you're wearing the headdress of my country." I said, "What country?" He said, "Saudi Arabia." I said, "Oh, word?" I said, "You from Saudi Arabia?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Where you from?" I said, I'm from Al Marak. I said, "I'm from Maghreb Al Aqsa." And then he stopped and looked like, oh. Then he put his head down. I said, "So if this is your headdress, this shamag headdress, you saying that your people made this?" "No, brother, I'm not saying that." "No, brother, I'm not saying that." He don't know me from Adam. And he with 3 other Arabs. So he like, "No, brother, I'm not saying that. We know who we got it from. It's not that. I'm just saying it's just funny seeing you in it." I said, "Well, next time you see somebody in it, don't laugh because it's disrespectful, especially when you know that this is how you supposed to be looking over here. So next time I see you out here in my city, in Andalusia, make sure that you got your shamag on because I'm going to call you out because you out here trying to look like haram. You trying to look like these Europeans out here. This nigga got beat red. Oh, I'm sorry, brother. I'm sorry, brother. Please, let me buy you lunch. Let me know, brother. Nah, I don't want you to do that. Just next time you see somebody that look like me, don't play yourself because you never know." He said, "You're right, brother. Salam alaikum, brother." Passed me by like 3 more times. And every time they all bowing. Black woman standing looking at me like I'm crazy. Like, what? Who is it? You know, but she won't ask. And that's the problem. That's the problem. The insular hate that we have for one another, not being able to give each other props when we see each other doing good.
And that's also the solution.
That's right.
Because when you meet and you see people like that, you can keep it moving really, really quickly. It's almost like an invitation to just think. For example, there's been another true story. A lot of Black women that work in the building here say hi to all of them. They all ignore me. So Aseer was like, "You live here. They actually work here." I said, "It doesn't matter. They ignore me thing. It's still my job to just not even my job. It feels good regardless of being ignored, just to say hi to some women, period." So woman, hear her in the corner like this. And I'm like, what is that pounding noise? I live right on the band. I looked over and the girl sitting there just pound her head. So I go down the thing, just really in it. I said, "Sis, if it's itching that much, just take it off." She was like, "I can't." I said, "Girl, if your head is itching that much, take it off."
Might be something.
She ripped her wig
right
off.
there.
Do you know the girl had long, thick locks under a wig?
Like, what are you
I
doing?
said, "What are you doing? I've never seen your hair. You have beautiful hair." I gave her a prop. The next day, quit her job. She done never see her again.
See?
I asked people, I said, "What happened to the girl? You know, so and so." I give. Last time I see her, I don't even know if it was a figment of my imagination or if I just, you understand?
Right,
that's one story. Then another story, white man in front. Our doors, you need a card to open up the building. So they only give you 1 card for family, whatever. So I don't have a card. I'm standing in front with mad bags. White man right there. All you got to do is one step to have the door open for me. I'm 5 foot, 100 pounds, so it's nighttime, but I don't look crazy, right? So he's not opening the door. The doorman lady, she not there right now. So I'm just waiting there. This is a normal thing for me though. I'm waiting outside the building like I don't even live here. So the door, a person come down and come to the thing and open it up. So now, mind you, the white man that's still there, that's blocking the door from being open, I walk through the door and he looks at me and he goes, "It's not my job to think." I said, "Thank you for being so kind and for taking a second to just step and open the door for me. Thank you so much for being such a humanitarian. Thank you so much." And he's like, "It's not my job." Now, mind you, it wasn't his job. But because someone opened the door, I just decided to be so kind to him because he was so generous and kind to me. And this is how you got to do some folks sometimes, is really get out your feelings and know that they really like this thing. I'm going to definitely ensue some annoyance from people that might not have been raised around women that look like me. So instead of taking it personal, I just really am like, any opportunity to not get a wrinkle is something that I'm really meditating into my psyche, because it is a program to reprogram yourself on how to be happy, how to not take things personal. It took me a while to be like, this isn't about, because it is about me. Every time I come to the door, the girl get up and I'm standing outside. I know it's about me, but I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do an opposite. I'm going to make this not about me. And then not making it about me so much, oh, the girl gone. The girl gone, and the 3 other women that never say hi back is gone. It's like they got rid of all the black women with weaves and wigs in a week. And they've been here for a year and a half. You understand?
Yeah,
so one day, it just might switch up on you like that. So it doesn't matter. For me, I could say, well, at least they'll know a black woman that lived here that always said hi. And even though these chicks ignored me, I still did it. And that was part of even how I got this apartment. I got this apartment by doing yoga in front of it for a year and 3 months. There was no cameras there. It's early in the morning. Don't you know that the person that owns this apartment saw me doing yoga outside of it for a year and a half? So when our lease was upstairs, because we're on the side of the cars and the noise, I was like, I would love to live on the side of the water. I never thought it was possible. You know, Brooklyn, never thought it was possible. So one day I said, let me just look and try my luck. Try my luck. Come to the interview for the apartment, because we in the building. The guy said, I know your face. You're the young lady that does yoga outside of my apartment every day. He said, anybody that can spend that much time with themselves and do what you do can live in my place. And that's how I got this apartment. So I got the apartment that I dreamed to be in, that faced the water, by just minding my business and doing yoga in front of it every day. Because this is the apartment that faced the water. So I'll come down from my apartment that faced the cars and go to the apartment that faced the water and just look and go, I'm never, that's the only reason so it's timing. I would do that for years and never get a room. So it's just really timing and me being grateful and me just staying thankful.
Being consistent
and he said,
in what you're doing.
He said, and I've noticed you don't take that. I said, well, if I take it, then I'm not really doing it for myself all the time, or just to, come and place intention and all that. It becomes more for what you're doing it for. And he was like, nah, I've seen you for a year and a half. Anybody that can do what you do by yourself, I'm just gonna allow to live here.
Don't become used to them.
That's the
treating you like you gotta be what they think you are. Somebody be what you know you are, and that will emanate to the point where they will start to check themselves before just coming at you any type of way.
We might not have a lot of whatever's, like I said, expressing certain things that are passion, value. Friends might not, share the same ideology. They might not feel the same.
But then those that do, work with those. But even the ones that don't, you can still be cool with them. The problem is they're not going to be able to be cool with you. And you got to accept that. You understand? Water finds its own level. So stop trying to convince people of this type of stuff too, man. If you with your queen and you with your king, then y'all do what y'all got to do. Whatever y'all decide to do in your relationship is good for y'all relationship. But if that in some way is going to hinder you or him or the greater community around you, think of another way to deal with it.
Absolutely.
We have to have our own communities. That's the only way out right now. And those communities have to have their own governance that is not based on Roman canon law. You have to have your own system outside of that to be able to exist. And for Moors, we have a lot, but for mainly we have Muslim customary law and we have Sharifian law. Not Sharia, not Wahhabi, I'm not talking about no Muslims. I'm not talking about none of that. I'm not telling you what to believe or how to believe. I'm talking about your nationality and your divine creed. You can believe what you want.
Right, but when it comes to
this nation, this land, and this nationality, we together. Like I said before, we in a situation and me and my queen is out, and we happen to see something happening to a child. And as I'm going to help the child, there's a KKK dude going to help the child too. We will help that child together. And then once the child is straight, then we can bang on each other if we want.
Right, or have a good day.
But one thing we all should have in common is that we want to see our children move into the future and protect the innocent. Mm-hmm. We all can get behind that. So whether you have a nationality or not, I don't care. Because I know what I'm doing with my people, my queen, my family, my so-called race, right? Based upon what I have decided. And I'm passionate about it because that's what I have set my life to be. And it wasn't that I wanted it that way. This is just the thing where when you are given certain things and you don't do them by what you perceive your ancestors created, whatever your higher self to be, you will pay for it.
And sometimes I say to him, I can't wait to get to a place where I can just watch you, paint again and draw every day. And, there's a time and place for everything. I also say, just listening to how many people are grateful for you, walking them through the process, obtaining their passport and understanding how to set up their family trust. It's a godsend because there wasn't a you when we were doing this.
Inshallah.
There wasn't somebody that could be like, you know what, this is going to take you longer. Oh, and by
Not
the way,
that we meant
if the Social Security does this, that, and the third, don't be deterred. It's just they're just trying to give you a thicker skin. You have to go through it like twice, but then they're going to give it to you. It's like no, there was nobody that did that for us.
And then
I always said to him, if we can do that for other people, once we figure certain stuff out, it would be beholden to us.
And then we said we need to
not do this for everybody.
Right. And then we was like, well, this has to have
every 5 years
institution.
Yeah, so that people can walk in the same way you do the Smithsonian and hey, good afternoon.
Or Washington, D.C. You go there for the capital to handle your business.
And you can handle your business.
Same way we need our own capital.
To a dentist to get your teeth clean and to get whatever. You should be able to, no matter what denomination, what church, whether you're Catholic. That was Catholic and Baptist boo-boos. And
that's just as real as both of them.
That this is like,
just as real.
This is a date night for me because literally I be working every night. So this is like, you know what? You have to switch it up sometimes to allow for new energy, to tell someone thank you. Don't be on social media because it takes away from me getting all of this stuff done. So I really am like, wow, now that I have this responsibility, it was like what you said the other day. Wow, I really like when you wrote that note. I wish I could do that still. Thank you, my love. You are incredible. See? That right there takes like 30 seconds to write, right? It doesn't take a long time.
You didn't know me at that point either.
No, I didn't.
Person that just ordered.
What my mama taught me, whatever restaurant, whoever you meet, you just like the person that things. You never know. And not only that, I've been the help most of the time. So I always treat people, whether you spend $5 or $105, I'm treating you the exact same because it's just new energy, supporting and trusting, saying, hey, I place my trust in you. That's why I started, like, I really could not trust people sit on my face. Like, my face should not be looking like this. I'm not stressed out. What's going on? So all of that, but also to just thank you guys, because if I don't do stuff like this, then I'm just making, and then there's no balance because there's no marketing and there's nobody. So you've got to switch up your routine. That's why even he was coming out, because me switching up a routine is like, what are you doing? But it's needed for a little bit of adventure, for all of that. But I can't have fun until I create something or do something that I could say, hey, now when I go out, I can feel good about meeting people, because at least I can offer something if I'm not in a yoga class that can be an extended energy of healing and love, and not feel guilty that I can't live my purpose. That's part of our purpose, is to live in that. But how do you find balance? And that's what I'm expressing tonight. Thank you for the opportunity to create a little social balance and saying thank you guys, because doing this for the last 8 years, I've never guessed that I would be doing this and it would have been received this way. So thank you. And if you do order tonight or tomorrow, please give me 3 days. That's it.
We appreciate you. We appreciate both of you giving up your time. We know you're very, very busy, both of you. You will be hearing from me, because there's some things that I need to do. My sons and I are. I have three adult sons, and we are formulating a business. And I'm not comfortable doing it unless I do it right. And so,
congratulations, by the way, having a business with your sons. That's incredible.
The best way, like I said, is establish nationality, trust, and everything, and then you do what everybody does, is basically put that business under that trust, and then create the necessary vehicles to transmit the utility that allows that business to pull the most revenue from that, while at the same time indemnifying you from any direct liability and creating a way to pay off the national debt without you doing anything, which is, again, how we are supposed to do that. That's how we do business. Everything that we do exchange-wise basically brings the national debt down, because the national debt is the debt that's owed to the nationals. That's us. Therefore, everything they're doing is in our name. But if they're using your name in a belligerent fashion as trustees, it's your responsibility to correct that error, because if not, they will do it to you generationally with your children, and they'll keep doing it. Not many dead people, they just found they've been using dead people's security numbers to get surpluses in money and stuff, and there's all these people who got kicked out of Social Security because of the fact that they thought it was that they were actually expiring or whatever, and it was the opposite. So you can't trust these government people to do anything of competence anymore.
And we're trusting people.
You can't trust.
That can be a little hard.
Yeah, you can't trust institutions that you were led to believe are there. But you got to remember, most of these institutions are not even 80, 90 years old. Half of these places didn't even exist at the time that your grandmother was alive. So if all of this thing can come into being in the lifespan of one person, think about all of the other stuff that has happened that we don't know about, that directly benefits us. You see what I'm saying? That we can take advantage of if we have more control over our physical vessels. Like in that movie, in the Lovecraft country, you'll see that the white man is trying to speak the language of Adam into existence. And while he's doing that, he's using these 2 Tesla coils to invoke the energy through the black man, who through his body produces the gateway to go back to Eden. But because black man, was hit in the head without knowledge of self, he didn't know the language to speak it. The white man know that he's not even from that time or whatever, but if he can invoke it through his vessel, then he can get into Eden and leave the black man behind. And that's what's happening.
That's not what happened, though.
But that's not what happened. Yes.
And I always say, I always go, look, these are what real dreamers succumb and basically commit themselves to doing, because it is a way of still being able to share the larger
It's an allegory for who we are in the world. That is an allegory for who we are in this reality.
And I was even bringing that back down a thing and saying that don't think that you're not living out your dream by having something that deters you or that opens up another gateway, because it can be something that can lead to greatness and can lead to helping others.
When they talk about the aliens, they talk about you.
Absolutely.
About the aliens that built the pyramid, they talk about your higher self when we was in our proper
But this
person.
is a plug. If y'all need a real actress, a sister for Jeremy Smollett, y'all need to hit me up. I'm very humble and good. Let me stop. But that's always been my dream. Like, can I really?
You are a classically trained actress.
But he's always like, no, you have to.
You got to ride out home.
But then you do that, and you're like, I'm exhausted. I'm tired of creating. I just want to be put in something. But I also I'm not going to stop my life, because the thing that I love doing and that I went to school to do, or have a degree in and paid to do, I'm not doing. That's what I meant by deterring, having a love, something that you're good at outside of what you thought you would be doing. Because if not, you might go a little cuckoo if you're not in what you think that you're supposed to be doing.
And that's what's happening to more.
And that's exactly
they're going
why I'm
so wow.
That's why I tell them I
not
love
seeing
that
anything that's coming from what
all
they're
of that
putting
they're
into
studying.
energy every day. They every day on the calls, every day on the
You have
books,
to have a
every
life
day on
outside
that.
of this, man.
Like, when are you gonna understand that you have always been a more, and that you're not
the paperwork, right?
You're not catching up.
It's catching
You
up.
can't catch up to something that you already are. You just gotta let yourself be it, and take your time, and stop listening to every Tom, Dick, and Harry, and then stop allowing somebody else to always dictate to you what you should be doing in your relationship, in your life, and all of this or that, or using these buzzwords, these mind control words that were given by white socialists through occult rituals, you understand? To have a place in your consciousness. So whenever you think about doing something, you got to think about who this is going to affect. That's not in your own community. White folk, if I do this, I'm going to get stopped. They're going to arrest me. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. That's not a society. That means you're a hostage. So let's stop being hostages. Let's really work on our government. Like I said, we're going to do a major announcement on that once it's actually ready. But until then,
together, because you invited us together. Indeed. So even though I think, because I actually get a little nervous, there's no one to help with stuff. So I appreciate you guys just allowing me to step back in and saying thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, we're gonna do a major announcement on that when that time is right. But until then, what I can do is, Bill, if everybody wants to come to class, you can hit me up at houseofl@hotmail.com. You can build on that, and we can deal with your individual process individually, because eventually, once the things do get up and running, we'll have an institution that you guys can go to. So that way I can kind of just phase to the back, you dig what I'm saying? And then allow it to function the way it's supposed to. So now when it comes to getting nationality and all of that, it's just like going to the passport agency or wherever else, because there's agencies now for Moorish Americans that are active and are actively internationally plugged in, that we're not just having to rely on the kindness of strangers in the so-called United States racist government that's trying to kill us.
It would be nice.
We have to do it ourselves. So
it will be nice.
Inshallah.
So thank you, ancestors. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for everything.
Thank you both. And like I said, there are so many groups there are a few groups that are doing some similar things, and my hope is that some of you, not exactly the same, but I wish some of you all would come together and just it become up so it could be one.
Right. We'll do it. It's just the only problem with that now is that there's a lot of ops.
Yes.
So I got to make sure that once we do that,
we're not going to
it's concrete enough that when we do make these exchanges,
we have something to exchange, and also think like a internal network that doesn't get compromised, because there's always some fuck boy just to try to just do shit because niggas can't be on or whatever. And you're not focused on that, but you're aware that it takes place if you do study government law, and international anything. You just
gotta be airtight.
Have to be a little bit thing. And it's not like, oh, it's gonna break if this person. No, it's just to say you don't want something by just having your guard down.
And you're dealing with an enemy that fights you on a generational level. So they're gonna keep coming. Like, nah.
And it's not necessarily, there are people that do believe that you can exist as two different things. So,
more power to you.
But it's just a lot. So I appreciate you guys a lot for this opportunity.
Indeed.
Especially for a woman of my color, and for not being popular out there, to just have an opportunity to share what little I could have shared this evening, and the rest of the moments that you've opened up to me. Thank you. Thank you so much. Women that I cleaned their basements and fed their children never did this for me. So I have to really thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you both. Appreciate you taking your time. And one last thing, there is a sister, and she's very faithful on almost any time I'm on, especially on the Tuesday nights. And she has a situation, and a lot of people in the chat, kind of know, with regard to her child having been been kidnapped, and a child that she had given birth to at home. and didn't have a birth certificate and all that. And he, did some things publicly. She's very public young lady. She does fitness and so forth. And then I don't know what the whole situation is, but I know there's a move to try to, like, they're saying free. But I don't know if what you do, if you have any type of advice or can, if she reaches out to you at House of Bell Hotmail.
Like, I'm not a magician.
I'm
not a magician, and I'm not somebody that's going to promise a dream. However, if I can help and I can work with what we're doing to do that, then I'll do that.
I can't.
Well, I see that she's on the feed, and if she would reach out to you at House of L at Hotmail, then this is going to be, it's about her baby.
That's true. That is beyond
like on
sad.
Thursday, Tuesday, like Thursday.
Or reach
What
out
did you say?
and
Like I said, Thursday would be good.
You want her to email you on Thursday?
Yeah, and just make reference to this.
Make reference to this. Okay, sis. You heard this, and you see. I want you to take down the House of L at Hotmail, and on Thursday, reach out to Brother Aseer and explain what's going on, what happened, and as much as he can. Because so many, we can say a lot, free baby, chubby cheeks, and but no, something needs to be done, and so there might be something that you can do.
Not having the birth certificates it's like a double-edged sword because there wasn't. We don't know if one was made.
That's what she said that she will reach out to you all on Thursday.
Of live birth,
yeah,
there's
they gotta
things in lieu, but
so inshallah, like we'll try to do. I want to go through that thing.
No, I was gonna say is,
this is just how I am as a person. If when I some of the those that are here all the time, and you kind of get it, you get a kinship. They're my kinfolk, and you kind of see the things that are going on, and when some connection that can be made that might be able to help somebody in a situation, then by all means. And
inshallah.
That's like the same.
So like I say,
all we can do is do what we can.
Yeah.
And so we can do more. So
inshallah.
Just thank you. But
thank you both, and thank you for that. Again, let me see. We will not. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about Friday because I think Sister Tamara L might be on this Friday. I will not be on this Friday. So I will be back on Tuesday, and I believe I have a Dr. Yosefa. I actually have a guest coming on who is actually in Vietnam.
Islam.
He's in Vietnam. Yeah, reached out to me, a doctor in Vietnam that is going to be on the show next week. He's actually a medical doctor, but he specializes. I have his book in Phoenician. How to? I don't have a book in front of me, but it's how to class. You see me putting up that Zion law that I put up.
How to speak Phoenician Hebrew?
Yes, he teaches that. He's got book. Yeah, Dr. Yosefa. He's going to be. You're familiar?
He talks so fast when you talk. Is his name El Yusuf?
No, his name is Yosefa. Yes.
Yes, that's my brother.
Yes, that's the guy that wrote. I have his book over there.
Well, he's my guest next week.
He's excellent.
He's the brother that we're building on. That we're going to build with the language component for the nation.
Yes.
For the government.
Well, isn't that something?
Yeah.
And that's what I found, being a small world, like where you actually will meet
a good brother.
A lot of. He's a very knowledgeable brother. So that's amazing. His book.
I sat in on one of his Saturday classes. I can't do it every Saturday just because my schedule won't let me. But it was awesome. And then he sent me his book. So I have one of his books.
Yeah, his book is actually really good.
Yeah, I got it over there. I got both of them over there.
It's very succinct. I know exactly what you're talking about.
I can read or something, Hebrew or something, whatever it is. It's the brown book I have.
Exactly. Yeah, I got the brown one and I got the purple one.
Okay.
101, Hebrew 101 or
phonetic
Punic
Hebrew. Yeah.
He's my guest for next week.
You.
We'll do most of the talking, but can explain.
Out from it after. I like to actually support.
He's really good.
It's kind of brought me out like, wow, look at all done. So just meeting a lot of the people in this forum. Shout out to 720 Blends.
720 Blends. Mia Bay is who told me about you.
I met them, but this is
Yeah.
through your portal as well. So
Word.
we just want to say thank you because there's so many amazing people out there
Yeah.
that, you know,
Support.
are like not underground, but aren't mainstream. So it's just the mainstream underground. And I just really am grateful for the opportunity to meet and just to connect.
Well, listen, this will not be the last time. I'll have you back, but I will be in touch because I got some stuff that I got to get done and I need it done the right way.
This week about your gift package, just to let you know when it'll come out, when I'm sending it. And thank you. I'll probably tomorrow
Islam
evening.
to all the human families
5
on the
on the
planet
left,
Earth.
2 on the right.
Islam to all the ancestors, everybody that we lost and that we might. We love you. Thank you guys for the support. Baby, you did great. You did great.
Oh,
show.
you did too, sweetheart. He's so cute.
Thanks for having us.
But thank you for having us. 11 o'clock. We did the 8, 9, 10, 11, 3 hours.
All right, y'all.
Trinity.
Thank you so much.
Peace.
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 Dr. G. Really? Oh shit.
Yeah, that's me.
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 Dr. G. Really? Oh shit.
Yeah, that's me.